So much pressure. Right, we're back at it again once more before this distinguished gentleman. We are going to talk about freedom, Syria, revolutions, revolutions that work and don't work, and revolutions that have thought to have worked and did not work. And the revolutions that have just worked out, but we don't know how their outcome is going to be.
No one
I
knows.
have somebody to fight with from Egypt, and I have a happy young man from Syria who has finally reached the promised land, I suspect, if the promised land is to be seen. But this is a new conversation that I'm having with. I'm thankful for Tak Theater Village, the small studio that they've built around here for us to host this show. I'm grateful for the guy behind the camera, Karam, and the gentleman maestro behind it, Mr. Ranav. So,
Thank you, guys.
before we go anywhere else, allow me to explain the gentleman sitting before me. Next to me left is Ahmed Al-Kurdi, who's a software engineer and activist who was born and raised in Hama. We'll get to that later. And he pursued a degree in physical education. He contributed to the Syrian revolution and worked in logistics and media. Now serves his time as a software engineer, just fixing a crashed server as we just saw him. And we're going to have a fantastic conversation with him.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next to us is a gentleman by the name of Mahmoud Salam. Am I saying it right?
Exactly.
Mahmoud Salam. A Burning-based award-winning writer and analyst whose research focuses on the social interactions of geopolitics, economics, and misinformation campaigns. Wow.
Exactly.
Despite what Google may
Last point I like about
yeah.
your biology.
So, despite what Google may say, he's very much alive and didn't die 10 years ago. So, shall we start with this? Who has besmirched your name, sir, into confining you to the land of the dead?
You are dead?
According to Google, I am dead. If you write like my name, Mahmoud Salam, like date of death, it will come up with my picture and 2013.
That's why you are trying to find misinformation.
Exactly.
No, well, okay, so it's a really weird story. Okay, so there is this other author. The only other person who was at the time, me growing up, was called Mahmoud Salam. For some reason, the name is now everywhere. I don't know what happened. But he used to write those pulp fiction like books, like Shayateen al-13, which is pan-Arabist, like spy, pulpy stuff, and Al-Mughammin al-Khamsa. Are you familiar with that stuff? So that guy, he ends up one day back in the days of my field revolution, I was put on a list of the fatwa for like death by Ansar al-Sharia, which was fun stuff. But it was really funny because when I talked about on Twitter, his granddaughter came to me and told me like, thank God it's you. Because my grandfather has been like losing his shit, thinking like the Islamists are gonna kill him or whatever.
Wow.
So I tell her like, no, it's cool. And then 2 months later, he dies anyway. And Google, for some reason, insists I'm 83-year-old who died in 2013, which has not been helping me with my job situation. I do have to say, because I think a lot of people think I am not who I say I am.
Well, who believes that I am who am I?
Eh?
Well, that's a fantastic beginning to be had.
I'm just saying. So that's why I'm but my friends love it. Like, my friends are asking me how to do this.
He who is alive and dead at the same time, huh?
Yes.
That's
Well, this happens
the
in Syria
living,
sometimes, just to be
we're discovering
realistic about it.
But I have been like considering it. I was like, maybe I did die. Maybe everything since then has been punishment. Because let's face it, since 2013, the world has not really been doing great.
That's true.
No.
Yes, kind of hellish.
Well,
I know.
let's be steer to this conversation of hellishness since 2013.
Okay.
I will start
with the people who started it, yes.
This conversation is informed by literature from Robert Fisk, who was long a writer and journalist who documented what happens in the Middle East. Burhan Galioun, who I just mentioned, who was a gentleman educated in Syria and the Sorbonne and has quite authority when he speaks of Syria and its future. And a book by Hugh Roberts, a man who's worked about 45 years through the International Crisis Group and wrote a very fantastic book you may want to read called Loved Egyptian Night.
Okay.
And he describes how Egyptian Night was made to fail by, in other words, the revolution that was, let's say, hijacked.
Okay.
And he spares no one of blame, including those who consider themselves intellectuals and liberals within these countries.
100%.
And so to do this, I've been reading this, and I've looked at the anger post-revolution in these countries where to some of them is a revolution that was not a revolution, to some of them a revolution that's been hijacked. And the Syria's example, if we see today, is a revolution started by socialists and communists, ending up in the hands of those who are, let's say, are not socialists and communists, although we will stop at defining them as Islamists.
Okay.
So if we were to go back to the 2010 and aspirations of revolutions in this part of the world, if we speak now from Egypt's perspective and a Syrian perspective, were the people who started the revolutions the same place, the same people who are running them in Syria's case? In other words, when it now culminates, have the people who started them have been vindicated in what is to happen in Syria? And in Egypt, Al-Sisi's and the current regime that you have there, what gives? What happened?
What do you mean what gives?
Well, there was a revolution that was supposed to unseat not just the leaders, but military being under the control of civilian regimes.
But I think these are
two different things.
Yeah, so explain yourselves, the both of you.
Let me start.
Okay, go.
Let me start. I know I got your question. Like, go back to the question whether the people who started the revolution are the same people who are still proceeding or not. You can say yes.
14 years later, after all this bloodshed.
Yeah, you can say, because most of the people who were evacuated from specific cities and sent to the opposition areas in Syria are the same people who were fighting in 2012 and 13 and 14, and then they were sent to Idlib. And most of them had some fights under each other, against each other, with different groups in the area of the opposition. But in the end of the day, yeah, we can say, yes, the ones who started the revolution had some ideas and thoughts about it, and their demands, what they are wanting and willing, they are still fighting in terms of inside Syria and outside of Syria. The fight is just different. Some of them fight with weapons, the others with a camera.
Yeah.
But you must say also that there are other ideologies that intervened with the main reason of the revolution.
Yeah.
Some international interests, some. But the core of the revolution in the Syrian community, the one that started because of the suffering they have been through and the dictatorship they experienced, is there. You can see it in the faces of people during these interviews on the streets in Syria. Their reaction is, one of the needs we needed is freedom, and now we have it. The other thing, the detainees must be out, and we are having it. And this kind of ruling by weapons and fear and is gone. This is one of the biggest part of our demands in the Syrian revolution.
Yeah.
What happens to the near or far future?
Yeah.
This is a question of the international interests and the leaders in the country.
Yeah.
Because now we split between politics and what the people want.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I believe no one cares.
Okay.
They will do their plan no matter.
Who is they?
They, in terms of who are now trying to build a government, the conditions that are coming from the international community towards the Syrian new government that is now trying
Can we just call it the white countries instead of the
white countries,
international?
yeah,
White countries, just say, don't say international community, it's like 16 countries.
We can call it, but also we have some interests on the other side.
Oh, I understand.
I mean, Turkey,
I'm just
Qatar are
looking
now.
at who doesn't?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but just to summarize the point, yes, the Syrian revolution started because some kids wrote something at the wall, but
Yeah.
this is one of the main reasons that made the outbreak happen.
Yeah.
In general, Syria went through a lot of revolutions against the same government. Now we have more complications after the fall of the government within 20 days or 11
Let me just add this question. In Ethiopia, when the revolution happened in the 2018s, what I was told, what the revolution brought about is people who will no longer tolerate oppression again. In other words, dismantle or not dismantle the system, but the people's shoulders will no longer tolerate an oppressive system to be put upon on them from the top, which means they will have agency to decide. That didn't happen in my country because it got worse. My Egyptian friend, allow us to ask you this question.
Well, you did ask me one at the beginning, right?
Yes.
So what is your question now? Tell me.
Continue explaining the revolution in Egypt to
No,
us.
I'm not going to continue explaining it. I'll just, okay. So, here is the thing. If you take a look at Egypt, the history of Egypt, it's kind of interesting because, you know, we spend about 3,000 years or 4,000 years, whatever, the Pharaoh years, as like, you know, the perfect example, the role model for the God King ruler society, right? And once that was over, which around like 300 like BC is with like, you know, the whatever, like the Cleopatra's like granddaddy and that stuff, like came over the Ptolemaic, whatever. We have been in continuous foreign occupation since then until 1952, technically.
So the Nasserite revolution is...
Farouk or
Yeah,
after
yeah.
Farouk?
Like, yeah, after Farouk. And in reality, like, there hasn't been a single uprising or liberation or whatever movement throughout Egyptian history since, like, after the pharaohs fell until that moment, to begin with. And even that is kind of sus because, as far as you know, 1952, like, you know, a lot of people believe that coup that happened against whatever was CIA backed.
Sure.
You know, to begin with. Like, you know, Nasser was CIA backed, they're all like it works. And so when they came into power, I remember, like, you know, Mohammed Naguib, who was the leader of like the officers at the time, wanted Egypt to be a democracy.
Yeah.
And everybody else, you know, said that they wanted it to be a dictatorship. And that's why they removed him.
Okay.
Because they figured, like, because they did this thing, like every other revolution in Egypt, when it succeeds because, like, the unseriousness of the state. Like, 1952 one, they managed to succeed because they somehow, like, most of them did not even, like, do anything. There was this one guy who managed to, like, go in and hold on to the Minister of Defense and control the ministry, and that's why it worked.
Okay.
That's it. And that's the guy they threw into jail and killed him afterward. Yusuf Siddiq, it's natural, like, of course, but Gamal Abdel Nasser is the hero.
Yeah.
And since then, it has been a military rule that have decided that the best thing to do is act as if we're the one occupying the country,
Yeah.
right? Because that's basically and that's what people were living under. They were living under presidents who are acting like kings and dying like kings, but do not have anyone to, like, inherit them.
Yeah.
Until the revolution came.
Yeah.
So it's a very radical concept to the population,
Okay.
right? Self-rule.
Yeah.
After you spend 5,000 years believing that whatever is happening in the halls of power is external to you. And not only is external to you, like if the Mamalik, if you can understand the concept of Mamalik, those were slaves,
Yeah.
bred warriors from Europe that were brought in to rule Egyptians because Egyptians were not
Mamluks, yeah.
allowed to rule themselves.
Exactly.
You know, so there is this fantastic tradition of, like, just making sure that this country, this Code Busatua of, like, you know, the world, that everybody has to pass by it somehow, you know, it's always under control,
Yes. Okay.
right? And you cannot have that kind of trauma with people and then give them democracy and expect things to be chill. Like, for example, during the Turkish occupation, like, you know, Turkish, the Ottoman, whatever, yes.
Yeah.
They used to have this fantastic, like, if you ask any Egyptian, like, one of the most common things they'll tell you when they went through, like, a really hard time is that they use the word fashkh, which means, like, they got, like, ripped apart. And sometimes they will say something like by a spike up my ass. It's a very known expression.
Graphic.
It's a very graphic and known expression.
Yeah.
Exactly.
99% of Egyptians who use it have no idea that that was the preferred way for the Ottomans to torture Egyptians, like, over, like, 180 years ago. In which, like, if you're, like, disobeyed, they would put you on a spike and then allow you to just sit there until your knees buckle and it just continues going through you. Now, for some reason, that, even though it's not taught in any history book that the government would ever provide, and not being discussed on a national level, it's part of the memory of the population. Okay? This is the kind of thing that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So when you go and you're like, okay, we're going to do a revolt because at this point we have reached a level in which we are supposed to have the right kind of intellectuals and human rights. Like, you know, it was the moment, like, you know, for something to happen.
Yeah.
You're forgetting that, number one, you're introducing very radical ideas to the population that is built for thousands of years on a pyramid-like structure.
Sure.
Right? Which is not, you know, which is not what you're offering. You're a bunch of anarchists to begin with. You know? And then everybody wanted the revolutionaries to come up with solutions, ignoring that they're not a monolith and they're not something that connects everyone. And
But surely they would have, no, hold on. I have like a point with that, which is, I've seen revolutions in my country and every others. The very least that's expected of is stop killing us for voicing our opinions, stop jailing us in these infamous jails. We wouldn't even ask to take economic enfranchisement, but at least stop jailing us for having said something, stop killing us for just having an opinion.
So, yeah, sure, but like when you had a military, like, state,
Yeah,
which you had under Nasser.
Sure.
And then you spend like, half of the 70s and the 80s and 90s introducing concept of police state instead.
yeah,
Right, and the police, naturally, because it's a civilian, it's the one dealing with civilians, the corruption is face to face, naturally, like all of the bad things that happen in that regard, Suddenly, when you're trying to remove it, you think, okay, we're going to remove the police state and create democracy.
Yeah.
Not thinking, okay, I'm going to remove the police state and we're going to revert to factory setting with the military fucking state.
Exactly. Okay.
Which is what happens, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention, every single time, I remember this back in 2011, like the Iran specter is on your brain all the time, especially if you're a secularist, right? Like, what I'm saying? You don't want to be those idiotic Irani activists who got taken over by Islamists and whatever, which is the same thing that they're trying to convince Syrians is happening.
Exactly.
Even though what's happening in Syria right now is 12 years of civil war and
14.
Yeah, 14. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's beyond the concept of revolution at this point.
That's what I wanted to point out.
Yeah.
In Egypt, for example, the movement started very quick and was done also in very short time compared to our revolution, let's say, since 2011, the Syrian revolution against the government, no matter what kind of naming you want to use.
Yeah.
The government in Syria is not the same government 14 years ago.
Yes.
The system collapsed. But in Egypt, for example, after the first fall of Mubarak, the system is still there. Mubarak left.
Yes. Also, you're 27 million. With all due respect, 112. Like Bashar ran out of soldiers. There is no way for us to ever run out of soldiers. We will just keep producing 2 million every year.
Yeah.
And also, you have to know that he got betrayed in our case.
Oh, yes, we all do.
Well, and he betrayed also. Like, it's a complication that we can't compare between two countries. Like, we can bring another country, Yemen.
But I can say something. Like, what I can compare, though, is on the photos of Bashar al-Assad and his families. What the twink is going on over there? Explain to me, because they look like a good time. I swear, like, if I didn't know that they're killers, whatever, the amount of, twinky photography that this family is engaged in. Yeah. Is amazing. And
well, yes,
they look like fun people. They look like Jumbalat, like fun people.
Jumbalat.
Exactly.
No, but we have to be you have to understand the fact that these people are living in their own aura and fantasy.
Yeah.
When I heard some stories from people who are really close to the government, you have a lot of them here in Berlin. They are rich.
Oh no, I know.
They live somewhere else. Like, for them, people are just piece of papers they can throw away whenever they want. They can live their life. Like, some people believe without the existence of this family, they are nothing. So it's
clientelism expresses
itself. It's the same people who thought that Syria got destroyed the moment Bashar fell. You know what I'm saying? The people who are crying, I was like, wait, it's destroyed now? Yeah. And they're like, wait till you see what the Israelis will do. I mean, what, they're going to occupy a piece of land for a really long time? They're like, yes. I'm like the Golan? Like, what are you talking about?
No, but for those people, for those ones who, look, I know where this question or this discussion come from, since we have different examples of revolutions.
Oh, brother, it comes from my own revolution, my own country falling so spectacularly bad.
Right.
It's made me cynical of revolutions. But what I've done since then is I've tried to read the reasons for which the revolutions begin with. The idea being that a revolution should be judged by the aims with which it started for, because barely do they ever work in the end.
We have to agree that no revolution must end with a benefit for some country.
I know, but
look at France.
But the thing with them is that, it's called the Umhara, I think. Umhara, so Ahmed Abi is supposed to be half Umhara, and he was supposed to coming on the Umhara revolution and being this new whatever, and then he screwed them. You know what I'm saying? Because state has no religion and no tribe and no affiliation, no people. You just go for it, and that's the game of power, right?
Exactly. And on the other side, you just mentioned the CIA.
Right. Did I mention CIA?
Okay. Yeah. And then
in 1950s.
Yeah, and the first coup happened against a government was made by the CIA.
You mean the Mossadegh?
Syria.
The Mossadegh, or? No, that's 54 in
No, before, when they started creating the CIA.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All
There
right.
was some
Fair.
hope in Syria, which was led by, after the first, or maybe the first democratic president. So you have many factors intervening and trying to.
Yeah.
So the revolution, we have his reason or his explanation about what happened in Ethiopia, and we can have the same in Syria and Egypt. But in the end of the day, the demographic situation in Syria is different.
Played out, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask you a question then while we're at it? There is no authority where, or maybe now I need to be proven wrong, where there is civil society, governments are far weaker to just essentially lump on you this authoritarianism.
Okay.
Now, Egypt, as our cameraman knows, has 80 and 90 years of solidarity, Muslim brotherhood that provided charitable institutions and had such reach.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Call it an underworld of organization because you had a repressive government that didn't care for its citizens.
That's cool. Continue.
Yeah. Would it have ever worked if the Muslim Brotherhood was part of a coalition government that would have run Egypt as opposed to...
See, that was, so here is the thing. When the whole thing started back in 2011, I remember there was pressure to create a united list.
Yeah.
Right, in which like you put the liberals with the Muslim Brotherhood, with the leftists, with like whatever, and then each person would just get a piece of the pie and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? And that was something, for example, like, you know, the parties, like, you know, the liberals and like the socialists, whatever, like some of them were invited, most of them refused. They created alternative coalitions.
Okay.
Because the thinking at the time was not only was this basically ceding ground to Islamists, when they did not really do anything in this revolution, really, it was, they were against it, that it looks like a very bad exercise in democracy.
Yes.
You know, we want people to know the elections, want people to go and vote, we want them to experience the change and that this shit counts and all this like.
Only on certain parameters.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, it's that kind of proposal when it got presented, it was presented as a poison pill. And it like, and that's the thing, like every single move that the military has done since then was like, there was this book I read in 1952 that talked about how they managed to like circumvent the entirety of civil society in Egypt and the political parties and all of this and seize complete control of the country at a time in which it was super vibrant, super strong. The civil society was really like far beyond stronger than whatever Egypt had 2011.
Okay.
You know, in terms of everything, in terms of diversity, in terms of like, you know, representing everything. So it's, I don't know like what happens, but at the end of the day, people like, no matter who they are, like there are no heroes. Eventually, if you're gonna stay, if you're gonna live there,
you live long enough to become the villain. Yeah.
You're gonna cooperate.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
You know, and some of them still pretend to be heroes. Some of them, you know, are still taking at that face value, but they just have to live. And I can't really judge it. Yeah. You know, but I left for this reason. You know, but when it comes down to it, it's corruption. Like it is systematic corruption over a generation. The people get used to it. This idea of nepotism, of control, of power, of us and not them. Yeah. And like it becomes very easy then, you know, after that to convince people to go into civil wars or like try to eliminate like someone like the Muslim Brotherhood with its 5 million voters. You know what I'm saying? Like it becomes easy because you can other them.
Yeah. Now forgive me for this. You just said something that was interesting. Wasn't the revolution based on the right or the dignity? In other words, people literally were tired not just of the corruption, but the brazenness of it that when the revolution started, dignity was one aim. Not all of them, but one was dignity, which is that
yes, which they changed it with social justice. كرامة إنسانية وعدالة اجتماعية.
Exactly.
But like, here is the thing. Like the reason why they went with like كرامة إنسانية instead of like عدالة اجتماعية, which is social justice, is that it's really hard to quantify justice.
It's relative.
If you go and ask people, what is their definition of social justice, like 17 people will give you very different answers. That's I was talking in Egypt and same in Syria. Freedom is a lot more obvious and scary.
Yeah.
You know freedom.
Okay.
You cannot know what justice is. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like personally, like that's why we've always had this like model also for the autocratic just ruler. you know, the person.
You mean the benevolent ruler?
The benevolent dictator.
African intellectuals have told me they
Yes.
would like that to happen.
Of course, he's just someone very, very smart, very, very elite, and who is equally cruel to everyone.
Who knows more than you.
Besides being like just being cruel equally to everyone. Do not flog me and not flog him. Flog us all. Okay, Daddy. Like there is a very big like. I think sometimes like specifically in Egypt, our life would be so much better if just we opened a bunch of BDSM clubs.
Exactly.
And then everybody can just get it out of your system. Hey, you want military men to fucking like stand on you with your boots and stuff like that? Go to this room.
Yeah.
You want to like,
Okay. So secretly we're all wishing to be oppressed. Is that what it is?
No, I think
Or
that's
secretly we've forgotten what it is? No,
Let's
because
make it fit.
I
First of
must-
all, first of all, do not compare yourself to us. You are coming from the Wakanda of Africa. Like you are from Ethiopia, the land that was never ever conquered and never lost a war ever. You
we
know?
have, but we never.
I know, but that's your
But the
PR.
point is, well, also I've lived here as the both of you have, and time change, you change, your hopes get dashed, but you instead of getting completely disappointed and going back, you go, why did we fail at this? Why did we fail at that?
Right.
And then the question is, oh, it's Habibi, you are very kind if you say that. I don't think we will learn, but it's good to know. Yeah.
Good to know.
The reason I say, for example, I'm trying
We'll
to
learn what? What do you mean?
If we learn what we would define justice, not in such broad terms, but in short ones. You know how this, like these things where you get opinions and then you track them in computer models to say which one would adhere to a certain point? To me, justice, I don't know about Egypt, but in Ethiopia is, at least as the revolution was, stop fucking oppressing me for actually having an opinion. Don't put me to jail. Forget the economic justice of enfranchisement, blah, blah, blah. Social justice is an economic platform that you write manifestos over. But don't jail me because I have an opinion.
This is something else.
Let's
But
start.
that's
There,
like
don't
that's
kill me.
minimal. Like you know what I'm saying? That's
Minimal,
like-
but incredibly powerful as well.
I understand, but
Yeah.
but it's kind of like this. It's kind of like when you talk to other people, you know, regarding what got them to do the revolution. Their issue was the overt, you know, corruption.
Yeah.
The police asking you for a bribe, stuff like that. If you had just managed to keep that overt corruption from touching the people, you know, that directly or that openly,
Like here.
for example, hello, everybody would have just been cool with it,
Yeah.
right?
But we must agree that that's the right.
But that's a problem, right? Like, you know, because basically you're kind of like the kind of person who says, oh, we should have voted for Kamala because Trump would have been so much worse than Gaza.
Okay.
Okay? It is that you want the polite butcher
Yeah.
versus the impolite butcher.
Both of them are butcher.
A butcher than a butcher. And personally, I like authentic butchers. I like people who are butchers, who say that they're butchers, not people who pretend that they are something
Not,
else.
but they are butcher.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
So I don't like this is does that make sense to you? Like this is
Yeah,
how I
gotcha.
feel towards like and that's my issue, right? Like, you know, is the problem that we're gonna learn and we're gonna create something, or is a problem that we are dealing at an age in which decay has hit most of our concepts and we cannot come up with new ideas that fit this new world that we're living in? I mean, the liberal order is not doing well. Liberal democracies as states are not really doing well. The model is not doing well. Like, it's reaching its end. People don't believe in it. There is no other model that supposedly works or that's being presented as something that works.
Or it could be described as the overwhelming win of a certain system to other models. And
Which is what?
where capitalism has suffocated all the space.
Sure,
So,
like
and
late-stage
that
capitalism.
suffocation is
These
now.
factors are just
Huh?
to cover what
Right,
capitalists
right,
are
but
doing.
like, what does that mean? Like, when it comes down to, okay, you've done a revolution, you've done a revolt, and you have policies, and you want to build a state,
Yeah.
or you want to clean a state, or you want to reform a state.
Yeah.
How, like, you know what I'm saying?
You
Like,
let
how,
trade
how should I
unions
trust
be the
you in the
on the
first
front.
how do you do this, and how do you trust in the first place? And what is a state except a whole bunch of people sitting in buildings talking to each other on the phone who have like a bunch of rules that they follow? You know what I'm saying? And how do you actually build a state for the long term when you are looking at things such as whether it's old or new, whether it is Germany or the US or the UK, and all of them are just like thinking, you know, in every way, shape possible. Like, people are complaining to me about like maybe the problem with Egypt is they didn't have a leader. And I'm just like, find me a leader. Like, you know what I'm saying? That can survive today's scrutiny.
You
and
can
that
find a
appeases
leader.
everyone. That appeases everyone. He has to be acceptable by the Islamists, acceptable by the
that's
liberals,
my point. You
acceptable
can
by
find
the
a leader,
leftists,
but who would accept
acceptable
them?
by the you know?
So an
It's the same
impossible,
with your
an impossible task to find someone that.
Well, first, who do you
appeals to
consider
all.
as your leader? Do you consider Schultz as your leader?
I would consider manifestos as my leader, not necessarily a person.
No. But understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, Obama, when Obama was in power, do you think anybody thought Obama was their leader? Or like Sarkozy in France? Like this idea to begin with, like you're asking things of us. You're asking us to build a state that comes with like rights and freedoms when like those same people asking us, those Western states are going through their own authoritarianism.
Sure,
You're
that's
asking
fair.
us to come up
That's
with
fair.
like, leaders that are supposed to represent everyone when not a single, like the one thing that all of Germany agrees on is that they hate the government.
Yes.
They don't like a single politician that exists.
But then they can't even also give you an alternative of any sort whatsoever.
Well, who is supposed to give you
Whoever is the one hating on the government, because being hateful is
I am
easy.
not being
You can be an internet
I am
troll,
talking
but
about
It's
that.
not about the hate itself. It's about how the common opinion of
How are you supposed to make it work?
population is working.
Like, what I'm saying, how are you being measured on your success? When in reality, the only success that you're allowed to be is whatever role that you're supposed to play within this late stage capitalism world order that is currently wobbly and falling apart.
yes.
But
we are from a different world where these things have not been established for 100 years and popular discontent has
You have
its
this
own
problem
opinion.
by these countries.
No, but like
are-
we will, by we, what I
so
mean
is
is,
democracy.
yeah.
But this
Democracy
is
is what, 200, 300 years? Like in reality, compared to like, human history, autocracy is the regular human model.
Well, first and foremost, for our part of the world, I'm not thinking what they have here as a model. It never was.
Sure.
But the reason I remunerate what I just said to you is there is a first task, then there is second and third and fourth that a revolution at least needs to, if not achieve, but aim for. First is, as a citizen of any country that I live in, you shouldn't kill me for having an opinion. Start with that.
Okay.
And then put ironclad laws as to how your police should behave. Start from there and have as many opinions of them as shared, then essentially go from there to aggregate opinions.
Is that the worst
and form
thing that could
political.
happen? Is that the worst thing that could happen? Like if you are in Germany and you say things on your social media against Israel, the police will not arrest you.
Yeah.
But you will not get a job.
Exactly.
You might lose out.
Okay.
On, like,
Punishing.
Okay, that's
what do
fair.
you mean by like the police? The police is such a red line. Like, what I'm saying?
Well,
Also, we
I
should
look at
connect
it from a
police with
security
authority.
apparatus from where we come from that has built over decades where it is an instrument, a blunt one or a sharp one, that curbs if there is opinions or what I would say common thought processes.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not talking here. Here is the complexity as it is. What I'm talking about is I don't wish to have theirs. It's impossible to have anyway. And we need not go through Weberian analysis of social strata and everything else.
But like, can it work with tribal countries? Is the question. Like, what I'm saying is what you're talking about a problem when it comes to is it because of tribalism and the need to only have like a head of a leader that's in which his opinion is like all that matters, or is it a larger problem with the state itself? Well, that's why I'm
Excellent
asking
question. I suspect the state is the biggest problem we have, the formation of it, the running of it, the articulation of it.
Historically or now?
The reworking of it as we speak right now.
Okay.
The reworking of it in the sense that maybe we've had a little bit of information that has been thrown to us and we decide, maybe I don't want to be told what to do, in the sense that me saying no to one thing will literally cut me off from a social strata, from an economic one, from a political one, and I'm a leper.
Yeah.
But like this means we are living in a world that is led by a dictatorship.
No, you, the citizen, should not go through that, is what I'm saying.
But like the US is the dictator.
Yes.
So if you want to just build...
Well, that's a very
you wanna
interesting.
build, like, for example, what's happening in Egypt, you need the permission of Trump. Or
Well,
whatever.
it's the military.
For the
Military,
weapons, yes, because they get 1 billion of them, or 1 billion.
Exactly. So even in there, if we decide for ourselves...
That's okay. That's fair. Our interests align with theirs because they are so mighty and powerful and have Facebook against us that
Not just Facebook.
even a
They just
legitimate
say
government
they just
falls
say
down
that if
because
you
of
don't
an
agree-
internet rumor.
They just say that if you don't agree, talking about Syria, if they don't agree for
Yeah,
about
but
our
that's what they-
conditions, we will not recognize you as a
But,
country.
but like this is one of the things I've always like struggled with is understanding that like the human rights. I grew up to believe like I grew up 80s and 90s. You know what I'm saying? Like people believed in democracy and rights, and there wasn't this much disillusionment, whatever. And then you go and you push those ideals, and then you discover that like in reality the West, those Western ideals, mind you, are not really practiced by the West, and it's not really encouraged by the West, and it's just like. propaganda and marketing. You know, it's more
Right,
like
exactly.
it's like the international law. Like, you know what I'm saying? International law exists so you can punish Putin, not to punish Germany. No, Germany.
And they couldn't.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the
So-
same point. That
An
is
unpopular
leading-
opinion would also be that we haven't yet written all of the international laws we need. And
I don't think we can enforce them.
Look, I said it once. There is no law that I could follow if there is one person not following it.
yeah,
Then no law that could be applied for everyone if there is one person not following it. So why the fuck should I follow a rule that you wrote, not you, I mean someone,
Yeah.
and suddenly you are breaking this rule?
Yes.
Especially in Germany, what we've seen lately about the demonstrations.
Okay.
Like, we don't have to forget the interests in our region or your region or
Right.
your region by the Western world. There is also some manipulation happening there to
For
make
sure.
us believe things that are.
Exactly. Like all of Germany's problems are caused by the Talahuns.
explain
And this
what Halahon
will
is.
kill half of
Yes.
Germany.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
You don't know what a Talahun is?
No, I.
It is the second most popular word in Germany this year. It won like the poll. They almost won number one. It comes from the Arabic phrase "ta'ala hun," and it usually like refers to the
Come
kids
here.
on the side streets, the Arabs hanging out with Gucci bags, whatever, and they yell at like Germans, being like "ta'ala hun" to fight with them. So Germany has adopted the word after a song by a Syrian rapper about it in 2024. It became a meme, a trend, and then it became a menace to society. Currently, like anti-violence people are
And
against
became very
it,
racist.
and are against it. The racists are using it. Like what was supposed to be just Arabs making fun of cliches of like Arab masculinity,
Yeah.
which was what really the whole thing is about. You know, has become this acceptable like word for knaka, for example, for Turks, like
Kanak.
being used kanaka. For
Well,
us.
yeah, apparently. Okay.
You know,
Okay.
but like at the same time, like people are embracing it.
Yeah.
Taking it as identity. Oh yes, we the Talahuns, whatever.
And this
like-
is how they put you in under a cover of
Yeah.
something that is like, okay.
That's
I mean,
easy. No, that's propaganda 101,
Okay.
which is that
But this is happening.
you're
in
already
different
no, but like
aspects.
we're so different already. It's not so hard to group us into something and go look at this motherfucker.
I know, but
don't
have you
think it
seen? Do you
is.
know the Talahun like TikTok dance? Like the TikTok dance move for Talahun?
Ah, really?
Yes.
That's it.
And I have seen so many young German white blonde girls,
Doing
kids,
this.
like doing the songs and dances for the Talahun songs.
But who affected this? Who made it
That's
famous?
like that the AfD, like for me, like the AfD was making it famous. It was actually pushing it, and they're pushing videos such
TV,
as
the German TV.
Yeah, Talahun free spaces and stuff like that. So this was gearing up. The next election was supposed to be like, what are we going to do about the Talahuns who are like completely destroying Germany?
Yeah.
And then those fuckers like basically remove Bashar and like remove the entire political like campaigning of every single party in Germany. Now they don't know what to do with the Syrian problem. It was supposed to be evergreen.
Now suddenly my colleagues are saying to me, "Ta'ala hon," literally. Stay
أيوة،
here.
تعال هون.
Don't go to Syria because there is. This explains actually the whole game in Europe and the
Yeah.
USA. How should we use you, me, him to make our profit? And we know that. We know our political interest and how we win based on the facts that we spread against refugees in some society.
Sure.
But this is not what we should actually discuss. Now we are in a different situation where we actually, let's say us Syrians now somehow reached a point of freedom.
After plenty of
After
bloodshed.
plenty of lost, millions are refugees. You can compare the situation now in Syria or the struggle of Syrians with the struggles of many other minorities, for example in China or India or in Palestine. These struggles are too harsh to just go back to Syria now and try to make another revolution.
Which brings an interesting perspective now.
But before we move on, Talahun is actually a fantastic thing because it's the first word that the Germans have adopted from the Arabic language.
And it's now in the dictionary.
And it's not in the dictionary. And like that is like Germans don't Arabize words and use them.
I would.
No. The international ones,
Okay.
such as Yalla, whatever, Habibi, all that stuff. That's international. But this is very specific to Germany, right? This is a very German word, and it is. I think it's a mark of integration.
Okay.
You know, that because usually when they adopt words into the German language, it comes from like the English, the Americans, because they occupied them. So like I feel as if
Posten, liken,
exactly,
tagen.
exactly.
So jetzt alle honen. So.
Well,
Alf Mabruk.
if
We
it
did
was
it.
not,
Like you did it. Like they can see us now. They can see us. I know.
but if it was not there in yours in the first place.
This word was not fast.
Yeah?
The song came out
Like 20, originally
2021,
2022,
or yeah.
and then it had a resurgence. He had a part 2 in 2024, and then
Because
there
it
is
became
a million
famous.
بقى. Like suddenly there was a racist one called Ich bin verknallt mit einem Talahun, and then there is
And then
and
some
then there's
some
little
people in
F
Germany
Talahun, like-
started actually playing the role of an Arabic guy telling another German guy Talahon, and both of them are German.
So it has seeped in, as we would
It
say.
is in the
like,
dictionary. The TV is talking.
go
It's
to
the
your
year
Instagram.
word.
Right,
Oh, I
right,
do,
the
but
word.
you would be surprised as to how boring mine is. Just
write
discourse.
Talahun.
And look how the
That's
Arabic
it.
community started discussing it. Like the news in the Arabic world
With-
started making fun of it.
Yeah.
What is this?
So
Why
now-
Germany is dealing with that.
So now we come to an interesting perspective, actually, because there are plenty of Syrians now who power Germany through industries, through work and whatever.
Yes.
And
They're
then we
starting
talk.
servers.
Yeah, but like servers, exactly. So now you have because my favorite subject sometimes whenever I'm tired of these governments or the people is the groupings that they go to, civil society, which means you have now a Syrian civil society that is diaspora and then within the country. A very bad example of diaspora running a country is Somalia.
Okay.
We can't be that thing.
Okay.
25 years of diaspora, they're essentially ruling for this guy or that guy. Nothing has been built that lasts a while.
Right.
So civil society in Syria, how does the future look in forming a new whatever?
Well, this is a very interesting question, and to answer this question, we need to observe many factors. You cannot.
Solve for Syria. Ahmad, yalla. Solve
Nah,
for Syria.
Exactly. This is very impossible to just be answered. But
Yeah.
let me put this as strings.
You've lived long enough to say is what I'm saying. You're part of it as well. It's your heritage.
Well, first of all, in Syria, the people who are outside of Syria, refugees, you can put them in 3 categories.
Yeah.
The ones who are living in tents around Syria and they just want to go back.
Sure.
And these people reached their freedom by going back to their houses.
Sure.
And now they are happy living in a flat after 10 years living in a tent.
Sure.
These people, they will be satisfied somehow, okay?
Yeah.
And you have the other group of people, the ones who were forced to leave because of any reason, like Christians who were afraid of being killed by Daesh, people who didn't want to carry weapon and they don't want to go to the army, and these
Yeah.
people left Syria with the hope of going back to a better country, and they didn't choose. They didn't choose to be there. They didn't choose to leave also. They didn't have any option.
Yeah.
And the third group, which is the elite now, the ones who have money and have power and have wealth in both sides, like
Yeah.
opposition or not, these ones are willing, maybe at some point, to be
After
ruling.
the heavy lifting is done for them, I'm guessing.
Okay?
Yeah.
But in fact, on the ground, Syria is one of the most complicated regions
Yes,
in the
indeed.
country. You cannot just say folk or politicians in Syria or politicians outside of Syria because they are fighting anyways.
Yeah.
There must be a parliament in Syria that represents everyone in Syria, which is, if I just count on my fingers, I can reach 30 different groups in my region, in my city.
Different sects, definitely.
Sects in the religion.
Yeah.
And also, we're talking about just Islam.
Yeah.
We do have...
We don't even have the Hijaz.
No, they have Assyrians, dude. They also have like some Samaritans left. I didn't know
Exactly.
they have them outside of Jerusalem. Like it's amazing.
And do you...
Who are
you-
the like the Bible?
Yeah, Samaritans.
we
For real?
we have languages in Syria that you never heard of.
Okay.
Okay, so these
Some
people
stats.
are not 5 or 10 people standing there. They are many actually waiting for their right to come back because the government just covered these things.
Would you say that there is a difference between the ones that went the route of Europe versus the ones that stayed in like Egypt and stuff like that?
For sure. And the idea of seeing the situation, the mentality has been changed.
Yeah.
Because now in Germany, as a person who's, let's say, a Syrian mentality, educated, went to school, blah, blah, came to Germany to have the cultural shock here, is totally different of how he deals or she deals in their life when they go back to Syria, compared to my friend in Egypt who was dealing all the time with a society that's somehow similar to his life.
Right.
So I can't just go back now. And also you have to understand the millions in Europe are less than the millions who went to the Arabic country. So based on that, when we actually discuss, there must be some conflicts because we have a different point of view to their point of view, to the people in Syria who struggled for 14 years. I was sleeping at least in Europe, but on the other side, I have my own struggle with being in being in exile and not having the chance to go back. Now there is a switch you just clicked in my head, and now what am I doing here? I want to go back, but wait. Who are you? Don't forget the identity crisis we had. Us and them. Us here and them in Syria. And also the people who lived in tents, the people who went to the army for 10 years, the people who lost their family and their, you know. So, and we have a special kind of dictatorship that killed hundreds of thousands under the eyes of everyone around the world. And you want me now in Syria to trust this outer world and accept their conditions?
Definitely.
I'm talking not about Ahmad or the Syrian population. I'm talking about this group that are trying now to build a government. They know that they were hated 3 months ago, and they know that the head of their group must be wanted by the Americans for $10 million, and they want to kill him, and they know where is he now. Like, the game is what I want as a Syrian person, us deciding what we want.
Okay.
We want, it's very easy, a country that is accessible, let me say accessible, for everyone who left to come back without having any fear of any small or big group that might have any problem, let's call it like this, with the other group. On the other side, an election that happens without any manipulation, no international or white intervention. We decide it's our country. And in the end of the day, a parliament that represents every person in Syria who might worship my shoes. I don't care. But we must be this. Otherwise, Syrians would not accept. Look what happened. Some guy of the new government said some bullshit. All women in Syria went against him because he said something against women. So we got the freedom. We have it. I'm not going to leave it easily.
No, but it's also so fast acting and fast tracked. It's sometimes, like example I saw was a prime minister with Syrian flag in an Islamic State.
And they immediately removed it.
But
this doesn't prove that they are willing to remove it.
That was what I was going to say. They may be afraid now, but when they're not afraid, they will come back. And this time,
that's our mission now, to not allow them to do this.
Mahmoud?
What?
Add a perspective to us.
Of what?
Of diaspora.
No, it's one of those. So in Egypt, I've been dealing with lots of people who have been hating on both the Syrians and the Sudanese for a very long time.
Okay.
Like, people who, like, somehow always end up using that same, argument that the anti-immigrant, anti-refugee people all use, which is somehow you're costing us too much and you're making everything more expensive.
Yes.
You're not working and you're stealing.
A lot of accusaires.
You are doing, you know what I'm saying? So it's that.
Okay.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're somehow a drain, but at the same time, you're like, you're robbing, you have it too good. And that is something that gets said here in Germany. Like, it used to be said about the Syrians, now gets said about the Ukrainians, for example, with Salam, whatever. Like, and the same thing in Egypt. Like, I remember, like, when this happened, like, the moment, like, Bashar fell, like, a whole bunch of, like, those, like, anti, like, refugee people were like, "Khalas, yalla, go home." And I'm like, what the fuck is no? Like, don't you understand? Like, if 10% of them only just like liquidated their businesses and went home, the dollar crisis we're gonna get is just gonna bring down the Egyptian economy.
And was said so by employment federations
and like,
as well.
it have to, exactly.
So that's just Egypt, it's everywhere.
Just Egypt. And when you're talking about Germany, you're not just talking like, I had this argument, had this fight with the head of the Economist Bureau on Twitter about his new article. Which was about like, Germans who are waiting, for the Syrians to leave should not like hold their breath or something like this, which, you know, it was, but my issue with it was that it presented like those proposals that those German politicians were offering the same way in Austria about like, here are 1,000 euros and go back, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Fünf.
whatever.
It was 5.
You know?
Now became 1 because we are more.
Yes,
It
you're
will cost them more.
Sure. And I'm just like, are you do it. Just do it. Every single, just do it. Do it now.
Yeah, let's take,
Like,
how many are we? 1 million multiplied
Guys,
by 1,000? It's a lot of
People's
money.
life we're talking about. You can't just do
but
it.
because if you do it, you
Yeah.
are ensuring that all of those brains that have left will go back. You're ensuring that all of the money that was made outside will go back. You know what I'm saying? You want to do it? Do it. It's not really going to hurt them, but it's going to say a shit lot about you. You cannot like be the person who has opened your fucking house to your guests, and the moment like, you know, it looks like, you know, whoever was occupying their house until like whatever like left, you're like, yalla, go. Not like check out on the house, make sure it's okay, make sure you're not going to be there, like, you know, in danger. Like,
But this was AfD opinion mostly.
like no,
And
but,
also-
like, but it's not just AfD, but it's also like it talks about like whenever you see a chart about like European birth rates declining, German birth rate declining, I'm like, okay, how much percentage do you think the Arabs like, you know, have like stopped the decline? Like if you remove the Arabs from the equation, if you remove the Talahuns from the equation, how many babies would Germany produce? You know, compared to
Thousands.
They called it a wave once, and I realized it was 80,000 a year, and I thought that's nothing.
80,000 a year. It's not.
They
gonna
called it a
make-
baby boom, but I thought, was it in Berlin? Because 80,000 for an 80 million
That's
population.
nothing. It's
Nothing.
nothing.
Let me just also add to their point one thing.
Yeah.
There are some people who asked us to leave immediately in the parliament. There was some kind like, if you think that your country is not safe now, it's safe. Go back, blah blah. And these they never considerate that we have minorities who now are actually might face death.
As
Yeah,
in
but
people.
aren't they?
Like,
Can I ask this? Aren't they not pandering to an electorate that is frightened of the AfD coming back?
but that's the thing. My
don't
issue
care.
is that they're not serious.
They
Yeah.
don't care about
Like,
their
you know
own
what I'm
people
saying?
in this
Yeah.
context.
Do the math.
But
Like, you know, if it's really costing you so much more, like, you know, and your alternative, like, I like policy. Like, I like people who, when they talk, when someone goes and says, okay, 5,000 and leave, they have actually done the math.
okay.
They didn't just like go out and pull something out of their ass and like throw it, which
Yeah.
is like the Trump school of like, you know, we're gonna lower the prices,
Making
we'll
up-
make everything great, and,
Making
like,
stuff up
Look,
as you
we
go.
have,
along.
Exactly.
we have to
Build a
admit
wall.
one thing.
Huh?
We have to admit one thing. In Syria, sorry, in Germany, let's just talk about the country. I am now having its own citizenship. I am afraid if we go back,
Yeah.
and I somehow can't live in Syria and come back here, I'm afraid to go to any doctor because the doctors I am going to are Syrians. 7% of the German medical professionals are doctors, just doctors,
and
are
they're
Syrians.
and they're 100% of the ones with good like bedside manner because
Yeah.
the rest will just like
And they will leave because their country needs them. 25% of medical personnel in Germany are Syrians. Like
25%.
Yeah. One of the conversations I was having with my boss at work, he's German.
Yeah.
He was telling me that I went to the rehab center 2 months ago for 1 week or 2 weeks, and everyone around me are Syrian women wearing hijab. And I was asking myself, what would happen if these women leave or these employees leave?
Yeah.
They don't know, those politicians in Germany, what actually Germany needs when they say such a thing in the parliament. Because if I'm going as a German brainwashed white person who just watch ZDF, ARD, these channels showing me what's happening in the parliament, I will go and vote for these ones because I believe, these foreigners who are coming, as mentioned in some story, in some book, they will destroy us.
Yeah.
So, you know the French story that... and you see them everywhere. I always say it, the ones who understand us in Germany are the ones who got to know us, and they are 1%.
Yeah.
The rest are afraid
Yeah.
because their government is making us monsters. But when it comes to face-to-face confrontation,
Yeah.
the first thing
As he
they
said,
say,
when it comes to policy discussion,
they would say, please stay here. My colleagues, don't go to Syria. Please stay here. My friend was working yesterday in KaDeWe. He's working in one of the most expensive shops. So we are talking about a different class of people. And every person, every customer who came to buy this expensive clothes there was saying the same statement. Are you going to Syria? Yes. No, don't go. We need you here. What had changed?
the realization that you have so integrated to this
So what
society
happened
that-
in the last 10 years with you guys? Like when you are fighting us and listening to your politicians 10 years ago until the 8th of November this year, the position of most of the Germans community was go back, refugees. Now after we got the choice to choose, you want me to choose your choice. This is how I see it.
Right.
And Mahmoud?
But like you also had like, okay, so here is the thing, and I was thinking about this, and it's really funny. So the German identity thing, like, do you know why they're so mad at Arabs?
Why?
Why they're so mad at Palestine, like protests and stuff like that?
Because of the
Syrians?
shame or the guilt they had with them? Nah, come on, this is
Come on,
bullshit.
shame, guilty,
Yeah.
no, none of that stuff. Like, you know, okay, so they had a problem after the Second World War with the idea of national identity.
Sure.
Yeah, they said denazification and
Yeah, all of that. But like the way for them to develop a positive German national identity was by being against the old one, right? You know what I'm saying?
The bad one.
The bad one, the old one. So we do a lot of performative shame, like, you know, rituals, all of that stuff, to like, you know, rehabilitate the image and showcase how far we've come, you know, since those days. And one of the easiest ways of just like not dealing with being anti-Semitic is just like, no, support Israel, like, like, and that's it. And that became kind of like, you know, the big part of the rehabilitation of the image. And then when Merkel came and she did the Öffnung, whatever, for the Syrian war, like that was supposed to be the end piece, right? The pièce de résistance, the crown jewel. Like the utter
We
transformation
solved it.
from we used to kill anyone who's different, that we opened our shores to all of those brown people, which is really funny that you all are the brown
I was told
people.
today by an Arabic guy I'm not Arab, so
No, like the Levant is Arab, but whatever. And like the moment that happened, like suddenly they let those Arabs in, and there is this expectation that like a German would truly tell you that like they're not racist, but they just want whoever comes here to look like them, talk like them, dress like them, and act like them.
Sure.
Right? And what they don't tell us is that once you become a German, you are supposed to also adopt the Erinnerungskultur and the shame and the support in
I
their
don't have
opinion.
anything to do with.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
Which you have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Right? Technically.
Yeah.
And like not just that, you're calling them out on it.
I would go about it in a different way, which is that the principles are that pluralism.
Sure. No. This is not integration. This is not becoming a German citizen.
point of view.
There is no, like, you know, a Neue Deutsche Party. There is no party that could actually talk to the immigrants or the people who just became immigrants, at least historically speaking, because it is taboo to consider them immigrants after they become Germans. And this is the social contract that Germany has with its, like, you know, like foreigners. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you come here
Yeah.
and you completely disassociate from your own identity and you present yourself completely in German terms,
That's fair, okay.
you're going to be successful. Like there is 12% representation in the German Bundestag for like people from immigrant, like, you know, backgrounds.
Yeah.
Which is half of the 24% that should be there, but it's definitely double what France has and the UK has and all of those other Europeans have.
Yeah.
Because Germany is honest in its fucked up social contract with its immigrants.
Yeah.
You come here because all of those people ran as Germans. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
Muhammad
I
Ali,
consider-
the Egyptian one, like, her issues were farming and animal rights. Yeah, and she won. Like, this is the most German, like, you know, issues that you could have. And like, and that's
I didn't want to laugh.
These two are going through a joke I don't understand, but let's go on. I would put it this way,
But
of
you
course.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you
to a certain
they
extent.
started causing a problem because suddenly you are now like the two parts. That's why you'll see a million articles this week and the last few weeks how like this is all about the end of the anti-Merkel sentiment and the opening policy that they did with Syria.
Sure.
And you see that when Olaf Scholz said it.
Yes, and it's just bad.
Yeah, but
What?
this, I mean, I'm sorry to say, the past 6 or 8 months, what I have seen is politicians pandering just not to lose on votes on the right side, which is why they say almost anything from Finlandization of Ukraine to immigrants need to learn to be with us, to Ukrainians need to start work. All of it is not explaining, as he said, it's talking points, not policy. As for this fucked up social contract he talked about, I will tell you gladly on part of those who were grateful to come here and have a living, that they still consider it a privilege to come and live here. Those of us who have intellectually explained it to ourselves find the trouble because we were promised a different world and found a different one.
Sure.
Especially with the Palestinian issue, the way I understand it is, they were told that they have the freedom of a meaning, whatever meaning that may be. You just don't have to be a Nazi, everything else goes, was the idea. But then so strong did it come out, the solidarity and the need for Israel's restrained action and the Palestinians.
Wait, but I have a question.
Yeah.
You said you can be whatever you want, but not Nazi. Who are we talking to in that context?
We, the Fujis who came from somewhere
why?
else.
Right.
What is my
No. But can we, like, with all due respect to the idea that Palestine is an international and global issue and genocide should be everyone's concern.
That's true. That's
In
fair.
reality,
That's a fact.
like, you know what I'm saying? It can, for, like, you know what I'm saying? That it's like me coming here and, like, you know, the issue of the day is a Tigray civil war.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I could conceptually understand, like, whatever, why they choose this side over that side, maybe, and I can check myself out from it because it's not a central like conflict to my being.
And it's
you
becoming
know?
a rejection
But I am
culture.
I was occupied, he's still occupied, and still being, like, you know what I'm saying? It's not the same thing.
For sure.
But it becomes this, like, point in which, like, just things just, like, get intricate and complicated and complex and intractable, I guess is the word for it.
I can also add one point to that, what he said, or what they said. The point is,
I am he. Wallahi.
sorry, I'm just used to Berlin style of saying
Okay,
that.
yeah, you know.
The point is, I'm always asking people actually.
Like, it's a fantastic shortcut. I use name and datum. Untahina.
Okay. The point is that we are living in a society that is putting on us a burden that we don't have to do anything with. Like,
Or cannot respond to?
I didn't start it.
Do you carry on you the guilt of the Holocaust? Do you feel that you need to make special, as a person with a German passport, do you feel as if you need to have special like dispensation and thought process specifically for Israel?
I don't have a German passport. But
I
even
do.
If, even if, wait a minute. Even if that was not a case,
Right.
my understanding of it is the manifestation of opened aggression, resistance, however, if we've seen in demos, multiple demos in Berlin, in many cities, against the action of Israel and solidarity for Palestine,
Right.
is what shocked a political class that decided for itself, as you said, has gone over the deep end and has come out as a free democratic state.
Right.
But it also defined those terms in terms of who it's going to be and who it's going to be against.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, this debate of Palestinian demonstrations ended when they called it a raison d'être. Or raison
There's pas de
d'être.
raison.
Stade raison. That's when the debate ended. In
What do
other
you
words, their idea of democratic participation in a political process ended when the state told you this is what you are.
Yes.
Yeah? The idea being you cannot affect change in the country's policies towards this other country that you are fighting for or fighting against.
Right.
And therefore, the conversation there was, we were, in my humble opinion, duped to believe that we have Meinungsfreiheit, which I think we have to a certain extent here. But it comes conditioned upon other things that we never knew existed,
Right.
or were, let's say, ignorant enough to not have noticed.
The
in our
word
state.
itself, Staatsräson, makes it not free to
Is-
say your opinion. Because
No,
they are
it's,
forcing...
it gets even more ironic. They let you demonstrate for 8 weeks and they said, okay.
So,
Yeah,
can
but
I
now
ask you
tell me.
something?
Sure.
Do you think
Yeah.
that Germans or Germany, the way the German folk are, do they correspond, like, you know, they think they are yani, a representative or, like, you know, another example of the European white people? Or do you sometimes feel as if they're kind of a tribal society playing by its own, like, rules, closer, like, you know, closer to, like, you know,
I
other
go with the
tribes?
second option.
I think they masquerade as different people, but use the same language and more or less are the same people.
But they are tribal.
They are tribal.
You know, they have
That's-
their,
yeah.
they have their own, like, you know, like the only way for you to integrate truly you have to, like, marry one of them. Like, at some point, like, that's it. Like, nobody
Yeah,
else will let
but
you
we've had
in.
this debate with integration, though, right? It is the
No,
rules of integration is what I was going to say, which is the integration course you go through tells you what democratic values and so in Meinungsfreiheit.
Sure.
Only to be shocked when a Palestinian issue comes in.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that's tribal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the same thing as, like, you coming to Egypt and trying to get the Egyptian passport and then going to say, I support Israel, or going down to supporting Israel, like,
As an Ethiopian,
demonstrations.
God help me. Okay,
You know,
go.
for example, if you
Yeah.
do this in Egypt, Egyptians will be like,
This is
Okay.
no, you cannot do this, blah, 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 blah. They will fight with you over it. Like, you know, even if it was, like, democratic Egypt.
Okay.
You know, and, like, sometimes I think that, like, the problem with Germany is that it has a constitution that was written by other Europeans. And
That's
not
one
the
thing.
Germans.
Fair enough.
And it
That's one
doesn't
thing,
represent them. You know, everybody talks about you need democracy in Germany. Everybody talks about, like, you know, if Germany is a good country for democracy
Good.
to begin with. If it
And how old
opens
Germany, the
exchange of
Germany we
ideas.
know?
Exactly.
How old is it?
Wait a minute. So now you're giving me a very interesting imaginative exercise.
Yeah.
If it was to be written by them, what would have come out immediately after this country was blown up into Second World War?
No, you can do something like I
Or
did,
let's
which
say
is
the
no.
80s.
I went down to the street
This
and
is
I
a
would
tricky
give
question.
people like parts of the what's it called, whatever, like you know what I'm saying, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and tell them that this is the new Bill of Rights that they're proposing, and if you agree with this change, and they would all agree this is too much rights, too much freedoms.
I didn't have the first one. The Bill
Like,
of Rights
I
from
gave
where?
them the actual amendments of the actual Bill of Rights.
From where? From
Like the German one, the current
Okay,
one, the one.
okay.
Nobody knows it. No, nobody has. Nobody knows
Really?
the text.
Okay.
Do you know the text?
No, I don't.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
if I read it to you in the street and I ask you,
Yeah.
would you agree with this amendment?
Okay.
Claiming it's a new amendment, claiming
Okay.
it's a thing that they want to do to expand,
Aha.
and they're all against. Like 80% were like, "This is too much." What do you mean, freedom of speech? I think that's a problem. Even more freedom? No, like.
Yeah.
And that is strange. Like, you know what I'm saying? That is very strange. That is very much like, you know, they did this study about like cultural, like, you know, norms and hard cultural norms.
Yeah.
Like things that are easily to change, things are harder to change.
Yeah.
And I think the study came back that the Germans, when it comes to their like hard cultural like norms, are as hard as the Saudi Arabians.
In different spectrums on the.
Wait a minute.
Different
Define
locations on the
those.
spectrum.
Give me an example.
Like they are that resistant to change of their cultural values to the, like, you know what I'm saying, they can change the, I can say good morning instead of like guten morgen, or the, like, you know, maybe use some English,
Yeah.
but I will not completely adopt English as the, you know what I'm saying, like
Sure.
that's the kind of thing.
I mean, do you mean that they are so strict about their?
I think that they are Arabs who are just white and autistic.
Well,
and
that's-
it just happened to
okay,
be
that's fair.
in Europe. And we always assume they're part of the white people.
And they are rejecting what's being applied on them by others. That's
Oh,
why you
one
have.
No, I think if you just remove the term German and European and you just looked at everything that they are doing and saying,
Arab.
you would feel you would feel
Well, I agree
very,
on
very
that.
at home with,
And I
like,
agree
the
with
way
that.
the society works.
And the reaction is happening because someone else wrote their constitution.
I would also say two things from my own lived experience, which is that the idea that you came to a liberal society only to live long enough to consider how conservative it is quite interesting. And this is an island that we live in Berlin, so it has one enclave that we got to say or do things perhaps. But does that, okay, that's a fair assessment. The English wrote, and the Americans, what passes for a constitution in Germany.
Yeah.
But when you say that too much freedom, shouldn't historical burdens also play a role, which is that, in other words, last time a fool got away with it when they gave him power, and therefore the freedom of speech was him saying, from now on, you're all Nazi or I'll kill you.
So,
What I'm trying to say is now they have to calibrate it the other way around.
do you know the difference between guilt-based society and shame-based society?
Well, they're both conservative, is what I understand.
No, like if you're a society, let's say, for example, if society is guilt-based, if you're like a guilt-based person versus a shame-based person, how about that?
It's too,
Yeah.
yeah. See,
Okay.
We might be.
Make it easy. We're shame.
We're shame.
You know, we are shame-based societies, which basically means that if I do something bad,
Yeah.
I need to hide it.
Cringe-based.
Or I
No,
do
I
it
need to hide
secretly.
it because the worst thing that could happen is if it gets exposed and I get shamed.
Okay.
Right? It's not if I did
That's
something
Ethiopia as well.
wrong.
Like jerking
or-
off.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then there is guilt-based, which is like, it doesn't matter if anybody else knows, I know, and I feel bad, and therefore I need to fix it.
Okay.
Right? And within the discourse of the war on terror of the 2000s, they always used to make this comparison between Western countries that are like guilt-based systems or guilt-based society, or like Catholic. Catholic plays on guilt, versus Islam, for example, which is very much
shame.
into shame, right?
Okay.
Germany does, like, but the trick is that if you have guilt and not shame, if you have guilt, you don't repeat the bad thing you've done ever again.
Yes.
It becomes ingrained. But if your issue is shame, then you have two options. You can either always be afraid to be called on it, or you
Hiding
can
it.
just decide, fuck it. You know what I'm saying? I can just like go for it.
Okay.
And this is why I've been fighting with people over the past year whenever they mention thing about like the Germans are like Nazis. We need, like I fought with Nadine Samur, like, you know what I'm saying, over her sister taking the case to the ICC, saying that Germans are like war criminals. I'm like, listen, they spent 50 years doing PR trying to convince us and themselves that they're not. What happens
In between.
when there is a court order that says right now that they're back at it again? What will be unleashed? You know what I'm saying? If you take away that,
Narrative falls apart, but are you really sure that a new narrative won't be built in just like that? Because we're
what do you
talking
mean?
narratives as well.
What
We
narrative?
have narrative.
Well, if
not
you've
Who
narrative.
has
given-
the new narrative in Germany? Who even the
Whoever is
narrative-
going to write it and post it and make
We
sure
don't have
that
a
it
narrative
followed.
right now.
What are you
in Germany.
talking? No, he's like I don't understand. What are you talking about? What do you mean the narrative?
Well, let's say, because you're giving me an ideal example of, okay, Erinnerungskultur, 50 years of rehabilitating oneself from
of
Nazi
PR,
trauma.
yes, of PR.
Yeah. And then you've convinced an entire population that believes it. Somebody takes you, as you say, to the ICC, and you become such a person. Then the next round of rehabilitation begins, is what I'm saying.
Will it?
I think so.
No. I think
My
after
faith in
60
people-
years of trying to be the good person and being
not
told regardless that it's not working and always be this monster, I might as well be the monster.
Oh, because
Well, we landed
Yeah,
at the end.
as we say in the Arabic language. Like, you know what I'm saying? It is he lucky who is scandalized. The moment you scandalize them again, the moment it becomes their thing again, you don't know what it will unleash. You know,
Okay.
if they become people who no longer care. And this is happening currently. Remember the thing that happened with like Reva, CEO, when, what was it, Aldi, that said like Nazis are not welcome, and then had to issue an apology after that because they discovered that like
Because they're-
over 30% of their
Their
customers
menus,
identify as Nazis.
Not just
And-
that, like go back, go another.
I need to see this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Google it.
You have Nazis who are known as Nazis in this country, and the government is giving them permissions to also say their opinion. So how can I, as a government,
There you go. Now I would understand that, yeah? If you have carte blanche for them, sometimes even hurting, real physical damage to
5
people.
days ago in Friedrichshain,
Yeah.
2,000 of them.
Yeah, and therefore,
And I
if that's
didn't-
how far you're going to go to rehabilitate or...
but like just one question. This is very important. That is in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
I am as a government who's trying to find its own history and trying to move on with this guilt feeling and this guilt-based culture we are having.
Yeah.
Shame.
No,
Shame. It is shame. It is not. They don't feel bad. They don't, like,
They don't
listen.
feel bad, but like,
listen,
we're
they
talking
have-
about the
They have
opposite.
classes about racism all their time, talking about how bad racism is, and they don't understand the concept of whiteness.
Exactly.
Like,
but like
you know,
I'm
whiteness
trying
and
to sell
Germanness
the
is so-
I'm trying to sell the
Yeah. Sell it.
discourse.
Sell it.
Discourse they
Sell it.
have.
Ya Habibi, you have the passport.
Yeah, we agree it's shame. But I mean, we have this government that is doing this, and they accept also the existence of the group that did what they did for 60, 70 years ago, and they give them the space to talk and to go on streets against us.
Because...
Wait. We're talking about this country that gives the permission to anyone to say his opinion or her opinion.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, you and me cannot. So
Wow, I'm Ethiopian, bro. I gave up.
I am Syrian German.
Hey,
It's-
Ethiopia, what kind of
you're a
pressure that they put on you guys?
The kind where we put it on ourselves. And
Exactly, but the Germans didn't do anything bad. Like, you know what I'm saying? You guys are Christians, you're like tall and black, it's beautiful. Like, what are you talking about?
I would
black.
disagree that when it comes
Yeah,
to
so
them,
there are some Jews as
no,
well there,
because the idea for, let's just say, black-skinned is the racism is infinitely worse.
Yeah.
and we have to add.
At least you're having a conversation about Syrians coming and going. We're going. There's not going to be a debate about that if it came to it.
Did you enjoy the fact that they're trying to replace us now with like Africans? I love this so much. I love the idea.
But I have to add.
But
one-
they are trade-based, so they're...
we have to add
hold
one
on.
thing.
Yeah.
But to all what we discussed, there is also historical brainwashing happening also in this country. Like we know when we talk about the conflict in Israel,
Yeah.
and we talk about the facts that are being discussed on a daily basis with
Yeah.
well-educated white people. I don't want to say Germans.
Sure.
They are facing you with facts that never happened in some
We
context.
define well-educated. Skeptical, because that's
No,
sure.
the education is relative.
Yeah.
Like sometimes education
They
is
read.
always
Middle class, upper middle class.
So they read.
They went to university.
they went to university, studied, and then they want to decide what is happening or tell you more about you than you know more about yourself.
That
You know.
kind of literature. Okay.
It's so, but we have also the fact when we want to talk about the topic Israel in Germany, we have to go back to the mid 800s, something 886 or
30-year war or before that?
no. When Theodor Herzl went to France.
Going there.
Yeah, and you know, we can discuss this, but do they know is the question. Like, if you want to discuss this
One
with some...
hopes they do.
No.
I mean, that's also the conversation.
Theodor Herzl is a name that is known by 1% in this country. If we want to discuss this, you can't discuss someone who doesn't know this information. And whenever you say it, they will attack you because you are anti-Semite on one side. The other side is the knowledge about who and why the reason of creating the word anti-Semitism, since it was made actually not because of the Jews in the first place. It was made because of this Austrian writer who was during the Ottomanic time talking about Arabs and Semite groups are not just Israelis. But this topic is also complicated to discuss.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, this country is living actually what Salam is saying. A shame-based culture that is being sold as a guilt-based culture.
Yeah.
But a time in which shamelessness is the lay of the land. A time in which shamelessness is
Well
the
said.
courage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Since the day, yeah.
Why should I?
That's
Why?
fair.
If you are ashamed of something you did, that means it's wrong in your eyes.
No. It's only bad if I get caught.
If I get caught, this is.
I got caught. And now
Everyone got caught
No,
in this case.
I know, but I got caught the first time, and now you're trying to get me into this shit again. I want to kick
I
you
will-
out for
I'll
this
be
reason.
unleashed.
No, this is why I want to kick you out as the German, like seeing you.
I wanna
as
kick
this,
you out. Wait,
Talahun.
I'm German here.
No. You get what I'm saying. You know
Exactly.
What I'm saying? Like you
And
are.
this is-
If you're joining our gang, you have to act like a gang member. You're not allowed to join the gang and be a
And
card-carrying
this is the
member,
concept of integration.
and then go and tell people that this gang is just a bunch of like wussies. That
It's
doesn't work.
integration with all aspects of being German. When you read
Exactly.
the law, there is the word must.
Yes.
And I've read something.
Isn't that by nature law? Law is written that.
No, the integration law.
No.
You
but
know,
this-
maybe if you don't like.
No,
it,
but this is
integration
something
law.
against like Arabs and Muslims that has been going on since like the 90s, for example.
That's fair.
Like
Colonialism and subjugation.
No,
and its
not the
rules.
idea of, for example, that the problem with like those Arabs that are coming, Muslims that are coming over, is the gays. You know, what about the gays?
Yeah,
How
exactly.
we must
This is-
protect the gays.
as
We
if-
must
as if there is no other rights
homosexuality.
in the Arabic
like,
world.
The same CDU that is literally fighting against like any kind of like
Legalization.
recognition and integration on the state level for it's like wherever they're winning, they put it in the like you know what I'm saying in the visa, in the citizenship because like. Yeah, like if the Arabs come, what about like
What
you
about
know
the
the gays? You know, and
No, but, like,
30
after-
years later, it's the gays in Gaza.
Now they are playing it the
Alhamdulillah.
other way around in Syria. Now going back to Syria, they are playing it right now the other way around. One of the demands that one of the countries in Europe, no mentioning the name, say
Yeah.
we need to be sure that all genders are also going to be.
Oh, I suspect that's true, but I think this time when there is something changing because they finally came out and put geopolitical interests first, which is you want us to forgive your debt, get the Russians out of there first.
Now what about the rights of LGBT
the
community?
first respectful thing I've heard, which is now you know how to play the game because you're not singing to
The
Poop.
gays in
Who's
Gaza.
gonna kick the Russians out?
No, but at least
Us
you've
with
said
our-
it
with
and
their
the
weapons.
game.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
inshallah. Inshallah, fix it. Make a democracy.
No, I'm
make
just
sure it's
saying-
secular. Make sure it's representative. Make sure women's rights are protected. Make sure all of those things, and then kick the Russians out, and then we'll give you money and help you. Okay, how about that?
Okay.
Thank you very much for your.
يعني, I don't know what else to tell you. It is my burden.
Then let me just put this in now that we're in it and blame me all you want. But I wrote it to make for myself to make sense.
I'll blame you.
Assuming that democracy will not happen in Syria because there are too many obstacles from inside and corporate interest and national interest outside. What will constitute, and I like this one, a legislative assembly that will write the new laws?
Huh?
Egypt had a national assembly that was hijacked. That's why the revolution.
No. We wanted to have a constitution writing committee
Legislative
and
assembly.
then do parliamentary elections.
Yeah.
The Muslim Brotherhood want to do parliamentary elections.
And
And
write
then,
the law.
which is really funny because what kind of elections will you have? You have no constitution to begin
There you
with.
go.
Like you have no power, you have nothing. So like, you know, the issue is like, sure, like go write the constitution. Does the constitution fucking matter? Like without the executive,
We had a
like
constitution.
no, we had a great constitution. Like you know,
Well,
we
this-
have
It was changed
freedom of
within 1
speech,
minute.
and like it doesn't matter. Like who's,
Well, then write it this time with just the Syrians involved in
the
nobody
point
else.
is it's
Try at
symbolic.
least.
You're
But
trying
wait.
to talk about symbolic things,
Wait.
like you know what I'm saying. But in reality, like, is that truly the issue?
That's what I'm saying. No, that's not the issue. And I want to say this thing. The question
You're
is
very Eurocentric, على فكرة. Very white question. I don't.
Well, then
throw him with water, throw him.
reframe the question in a way you understand. Then, okay, what needs to come first in Syria
I'll tell you. I'm Syrian.
or in Egypt for that matter?
Let me tell you something.
Yeah. What is?
If we wanna- if we
how the
wanna
hell
see
are you
this
going to
winning-
make a country if there are no paper?
But it's the apocalypse.
And then we sit down and just burn through it?
Going down. Like,
There is a,
Yeah, I don't
there is a
believe
regime
that.
that fell
I
down.
do agriculture for a living. It may
wait.
go down, but it will take a
Wait.
while.
There is a regime that fell down within 11 days.
Yes.
Even the fighters who were fighting it,
I was
didn't-
shocked that it fell
they
in
were
11
shocked
days.
that it fell within 11 days.
Yeah,
Now,
okay.
now we need to discuss facts.
Okay.
What is happening exactly? There is a country called Turkey that's been trying to
Sure.
solve the issue with the government in Syria to send back the refugees and let them live again in their country.
Good.
What happened is the government rejected this request by saying we will never allow any refugee to come back as long as Turkey is inside Syria. Turkey would never leave Syria because it has a security problem against the Kurds, PKK, and the Peshmerga fighters. So we come now to a different type of discussion with the government, which are the countries like United Arab Emirates, Egypt, the ones who are standing on the other side of the game, trying also to bring back, no, not him, I'm talking about the government,
Yeah.
trying to get back this government to the Arabic community and
Talking about Assad.
yeah,
Yeah.
and make them talk at least, which is also a move that made every Syrian mad. And also made Turkey and Qatar mad because they are bringing the guy who caused all of this shit again. So they were also focusing in Syria on this group of people leading the opposition areas with 4 million population
Sure.
and trying to see, yeah, they are terrorists, but let's see, could they make a government? And actually, within 4 years, Al-Jolani or Ahmed al-Shara, whatever, he proved to those powers that he could lead some war like this. And then the support came. All we know that Qatar is supporting financially, Turkey is supporting with weapons and also some strategic things.
Yeah.
And there are fighters from out of Syria who came to help this, and you have a government suddenly that is trying now to build a new constitution, and. But no, the game is deeper, because if you watch Al Jazeera now, Ahmed Mansour, Habib al-Malayin, this journalist who met Al-Jolani 2015 and now again spent 12 days with him in Syria and came 2 days ago selling you a fighter, a leader, Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, Yahya Sinwar, the new one, who will unleash whatever, bring back people to there. He's talking indirectly about Palestine in this context. So there is a political game happening against the new pole, the old pole, which is Russia, now is leaving. And we have again this fight, Turkey, Qatar as power in Syria, because everything you see is Qatari in Syria now.
Yeah.
And they want to unleash
And
this-
Israel, Habibi, don't forget Israel.
Yeah, it's
Habibi.
against Israel.
They are inside. Like, no.
Well, let's say, but there is a game happening. So the Syrian person in this equation was never thought of. I am in Germany. I woke up to see that there is a regime that fell down,
Yeah.
a new government.
Another
is
one
being-
in it. Yeah.
And I didn't decide. So do you want me now to believe that I can also go back to Syria and stand on the street and tell them, oh, no, this constitution should be written differently because I am the Syrian who, no one will allow me, because the powers, the weapons, everything in Syria is never...
So it's gun fu all over the place.
No, and he's not in control of the entire country, right?
need-
Like
Sure.
that, like whether or not, like this is the question of like, is it 1,000 cuts or was it really 11 days?
Yeah.
You know,
Fair enough.
because
Exactly.
It was, like 12 years and different areas were under control of different people, and it moved from here and went there, and those people bombed it, and then those people better, like, you know. Like the idea that Golani has, like, you know, territorial control of Syria, he doesn't.
No.
You know, he has some territorial control on some areas. Other people have other areas, and nobody's talking about them.
Okay.
Nobody's talking about how do we bring them, how do we make it all work. Nobody's talking about like Golan, for example, because like
Where he comes from.
yeah, which is
It's literally
Golan,
Al-Golan,
like, you know,
yeah.
they could want to come back. You know what I'm saying? There are others who want to like join the like.
Who's talking about the tanks from Israel who are now in the countryside of Damascus, for example? We are going...
سمحت, they're building a new Syria.
They are building their...
They're building a new Syria.
Verteidigungssystem.
New
They're building a new
Damascus?
Syria.
Like
with
you-
bombs.
Yeah, okay.
So, but like,
Birthing it. I mean,
Complicated.
So
birthing
for now, one can hope is first that Syria becomes at least a territorially unified country.
we need a parliament that
Yeah,
gives us the right to vote.
Can I ask him a question? I want to ask him.
Yeah.
Do you think they are done fighting?
No. Against
With
each other?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but that's the thing, because all of this like talk that I've heard from like, you know, those Western tankies and like Egyptian Sisi lovers, all of those people, always like, you know, oh, just wait, it's gonna turn into another Libya. They're gonna all kill each other. Right?
No,
Or
this
fight
is
each
not
other.
gonna work in Syria.
No, and I'm cool with it. Like, but my issue is like, okay, I understand that you seem to believe that Arabs are subhumans who have no other options but violence. But maybe, just maybe, after 12 years of civil war, everybody's
we're tired.
kind of tired.
Tired.
That's
Or
Look,
it
if-
does
if
not
the
work
government-
in
but when
Ethiopia.
has tiresomeness stopped people from?
If the government has fallen in 2012 or 13,
Yeah.
we might have had a civil war. That is
Okay.
really civil war.
Okay.
But now, after all of these years, the Syrians know who is the problem.
Okay.
Now talking about an internal issue,
Yeah.
Syria and Syrians and their government.
Yeah.
We know that all religious groups in Syria face the same destination, the same destiny, sorry.
Yeah.
And
Will they be part of the government or not?
Or are they gonna get killed?
Or they are gonna get killed. So at the end of the day, I don't believe as a Syrian person that there is, based on what I see, that
Yeah.
there is a group of people who would like to fight against another.
Okay.
But there is a government that fell down within 11 days. There are people who were working for this government,
Yeah.
and they are still in Syria. And those ones will be moved by the government at some point to cause a trouble, to make those white thinkers to be like, oh yeah, you see, I told you.
So-
or maybe they could move them to do something. But in the end of the day, as Syrians, we believe, me personally, I believe, Syrians are aware of what's happening.
Good.
The educated and not the educated both know after 14 years what is the problem.
Yeah.
It's obvious. It's like the sun there. So if we want to escape this situation in Syria, the new government who's now working should at least make it possible for us to say our opinion with an election, to choose our leaders, to choose our representatives in the...
And then they write
and then
whatever.
write whatever you want, because these people are
got to
chosen
it.
by us. We want them to represent us and write our constitution. And believe me, Syrians in general, you can read statistics, the Middle East in general, the educated people are influencing in a way or another. Like if you watch any YouTube video by some well-educated person talking to the Arabic community, they are choosing a language that makes us understand, because after all of these years of oppression, colonization, you need to start this way. You need to
new
wake them
language.
up.
Yeah.
And I think Syria would be, if things go well, the inspiration for other countries or other neighborhood countries.
It
to
seems some
follow.
are frightened as well, because the more democratic Syria becomes and more inclusive.
And this
there is
is-
no need for a Gulf state.
This is what America, USA, and Israel and Europe are fearing, to give such
I'm
a
more worried about
community-
Lebanon.
a community that is
There-
democratic.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about
The-
Lebanon. Syria's Assad's regime has been a constant presence in Lebanese politics, and the backing of Hezbollah, and Hezbollah like helped like keep them in power and fighting with them. Like there is now talk about like wanting to, like, if Hezbollah did crimes against humanity, to be extradited to Syria and face trial. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like.
And Syria is the bigger state, so it
And
can
like,
actually
no, but it
afford
was
to do
the
it.
bigger player, and suddenly
Yeah.
that vacuum disappears, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? And without it, and you have the failure of the resistance column, so to speak, even with Hezbollah and Israel.
Yeah.
So now is the perfect fucking time for the different, like, you know, factions in Lebanon to turn against Hezbollah.
Yeah.
And it's happening since
Which
the
has
beginning
been-
of the war in
No,
Israel.
but it has peaked now that Syria has come down.
Exactly.
The Lebanese also demand such a thing as, at
And-
the
and
very least, what the
That is
Syrians
the
have.
problem, right?
Yeah.
This is
We must
why,
not
like, you know,
forget-
everybody's afraid about another civil war in Syria. I'm worried about one starting in Lebanon because Syria is no longer happening.
No. And you have to put in mind, you have to put in mind that such a country like Lebanon, surrounded by Syria, after all of this historical interaction and everything, they are afraid more than the Syrians right now because of the fall of.
Sectarianism is even worse, as I understand it, in Lebanon.
And we must also put in mind a very important fact about Syrians who's been through this. He said it, we're tired. I just want to go back and build what this government destroyed on ongoing since
Which will take a generation.
2011.
Yeah.
Okay, even if I am a radical Muslim or if I am a person who has a revenge against some other group, I'd wait. And I'd say it right now again. What's happening right now of individual cases in Syria are made by some third group trying to show the world. Look, my Christian friends now are afraid to go back. And who's benefiting of us being here?
The same ones that got removed.
You know, who's benefiting that I am now during this interview had to restart the server? You know, so I don't want to build with my money a third country in my area that is occupied by paying taxes. I want to go back to my country, and this is why I'm here. The first question, why did I escape? Because I couldn't live in Syria, I couldn't be myself. Now, there is a chance. Am I gonna stay here? This is why I started the revolution?
It requires a deep, like, conversation with oneself, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, I want to go back and work on that. And the most important factor that is also being not discussed these days, and especially in Syria, that we are the Syrians who would decide for their country. Why the fuck are they sending us groups to decide how we lead our country? Like, if you don't do this, we won't give you, we won't delete your name from terrorist lists. If you don't do this, if you don't save that, and we never said we will attack Christians. It's all known that ISIS came to Ma'lula, the most Christian area in Syria, because the government sent them that. How the
ISIS
fuck
came to Syria?
ISIS came to Syria, you don't know?
Oh, like Kevin?
Yeah.
I thought it was just Egypt.
Just Egypt. So and this car who went this car that went from Raqqa, the capital of ISIS, towards the Christian areas, and the Russian airplanes are hovering, they didn't attack. Come on, am I talking to walls in this case? They are causing issues. We know America wants the oil in Hasaka and Raqqa. We know that there is.
Dude, I am so happy though that your country is no longer cancelled.
Now we are leaders suddenly.
Cancelled. I can go and visit you. Like Russia is cancelled. We can't go there.
Yeah,
You know.
it was cancelled for 14 years. Now you can go.
I know exactly.
I will
Now,
take you.
welcome back, baby.
I will take you.
Welcome back.
I'll take- Who's now mad that we came back? Half of the war.
I don't know.
I suppose it is. Then allow me to ask my Egyptian friend whom I have a beef with, or we're told we should have a beef with.
Why?
What we should do about the Egyptians and the Ethiopians as a final
Why?
sort of thought.
No, there is nothing.
You guys don't stop this fucking water and all good.
Oh,
There is nothing. It's done. Like, you know, and we are now heading towards oblivion.
who is?
All of us.
Hey, that's a bit defeatist, don't you?
No, not
Solomon
defeat.
still have
No.
Say Wallah al-Azim, I'm not going
No,
to
no.
hurt Egyptians.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what
Well,
the fuck? You mean
that's
the-
what, yeah. That's,
No. There has been, like, listen, like, you know, this whole thing comes down to this. We have a population that needs water, right? And the water is being kept by you guys. I understand there is a historical case. Grievance, and that is fine. I can understand it completely. But also, I understand that timing sucks. Right, the timing sucks. Timing sucks in terms of population growth. Timing sucks including like climate change. Like when you're talking about Egypt, you're talking about like, okay, increasing population times dwindling resources times historic mismanagement and corruption equal
dysfunctioning or
not great.
malfunctioning.
No, just like disintegration, a
Yeah.
state disintegrating. So that's not really the people who will be able to like affect policy, to like, you know, talk about, you know, the dam.
Yeah.
And personally, at the same time, I think I've been advocating it. I have a piece that became very popular in like, you know, Ethiopia back in like 2012.
Yeah.
Because I was like, there is no other option but to work with them.
Sure.
You know, they need someone to buy the electricity. We can just buy the electricity instead of like getting Israeli gas and like financing Israel. Like, you know, we could do this.
But can they really work?
but-
Okay, go on.
But you're dealing with, at the same time, a history of Egypt acting like the white man in Africa.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a history of Ethiopia needing Mubarak to fall in order for them to push finally with the dam, which they didn't have. Like, if it wasn't for the revolution, you wouldn't have your dam. You know what I'm
disagree,
saying?
but go on.
It is something that is held against the Giant 25 revolution strongly. That like we began the loss of the Nile, you know, which
Yeah.
happened under Sisi officially, like legally.
So nothing happened before that for the 10 years when the Nile Basin Initiative was doing that?
All of that is just noise. Just a bunch of like Africans doing African things. We don't know
Exactly.
what you're talking about.
Who would ask them?
Exactly.
Yeah. Who would ask them? Yeah. Yeah.
But you understand I'm joking with you. Like,
Yeah.
No. I got you on that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
It is
So-
a revolution, but those who actually blame the revolution will, say this is what we lost.
No, they're just talking about like how suddenly there wasn't the lobbying effort that allowed us to like block this thing, and now it has reached a point of antagonism,
Yeah.
right? And it's not antagonism that you can understand. It is literally like the way this is being played is Ethiopia is setting itself up to be the country of the first real water war of the 21st century.
Yeah, go on.
Right, which isn't great because it's not good for them. It's not good for everybody around them. There is so much like disintegration happening. I don't know how it will end. I don't think we're gonna have a war. I don't think anybody wants one. I don't think Ethiopians and Egyptians are that different in reality. Like everybody I know who went to Ethiopia talked about like how it feels equally as chaotic as Cairo and in Egypt. So
But at least in the past there were pro-poor policies. Now there are none.
Well-
So life is far more harsher than it used to be.
well, maybe life is harsher, maybe life is better. Like Emiratis tell us that like Ethiopia is a fucking miracle. Like you know what I'm saying?
Well, I
Like,
would say at 78% official inflation rates for every person living in that
I
country.
understand what you're saying.
You have 78%.
And that's the one the government saying, so I can only imagine what it is.
But like that is not going to get resolved under the current situation. The current situation is you have a government that thinks that it has a point of power, which is currently one in Ethiopia, and then you have a government that is trying to pretend as if it has some sort of influence, which is the government of Egypt.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it, there is a whole bunch of bullshit happening, in which
Well,
like.
Sudan is collapsing before our very eyes. Somalia is nowhere to be found.
Well, yes, but it's
And these
also like
countries
there's
matter.
also like you making a deal with Somaliland. You know what I'm saying? Like you know what I'm saying when Somalia like falls
Genius,
apart, and then you make a deal with Somaliland so you can have access to the water. Suddenly,
Classified under genius geostrategic moves. obviously.
well, absolutely. And like every player, every geopolitical player that exists now has some sort of base around this area or has some sort of influence around this area. So this is coming to head.
Yeah.
And this is coming to head at a time in which it doesn't seem that the Ethiopian state is actually that stable.
Yes.
Right?
That's a fact.
That's a fact. So
3 civil wars, not to mention border skirmishes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like you know what I'm saying? So like all I know is this. This will be devastated, this will be devastated, both will be devastated. You will just owe China lots of money and they're gonna take it in water and life is gonna suck for you. Best of luck. And we're selling all of our lands to the Gulfies because our
money.
president has
Need money.
and needs to
Doesn't-
build a
doesn't
new
Need to buy a new castle
Yes,
somewhere.
Yes, no, but
New Cairo, yeah.
no, but it's not like that's the thing.
New empty Cairo.
The neck.
New empty capital.
New administrative capital. Neck.
Empty.
Neck. No, it's not. But like, have you looked
Compared
at
to
it?
the
Have you
30
done?
million.
Okay, go to flood maps. You'll find out one of the most interesting things, which is like that beaches that are on the Mediterranean are gonna like drown versus the Red Sea. The Red Sea does not have as much like loss of land, whatever. So the new capital actually exists on the Red Sea for this reason. Everything else in the Nile Basin and Alexandria, whatever, is destined to like just like go to the go to hell within the next 10 years.
Oblivion, okay.
So this is happening.
It's not.
So
it's
they're
not
moving
very-
the power over there because that's the part of Egypt that is most likely to survive. And that
Really? So
Yes.
it wasn't. They weren't revolution proofing it as
it
they
was
made us.
not just
believe.
revolution proofing it, as part of like what's it called? That stupid environmental thing that they do every year. That conference. What's it called?
COP 26, 27, whatever.
COP.
yeah.
It's part of Egypt's like literal like
Turtle,
mitigation-
Ninja
mitigation
Turtles.
plans.
Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles. أيوة, but it is that.
Okay.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So, and this is why, like, okay, sure, you want to keep the Nile, you want to have the blue, you own the Nile because of you have the blue Nile, take it. Deal بقى with like rising, like, but we're not going to let you have access to like the Red Sea.
Yeah.
You keep the water, but you don't get to enjoy the water.
Unfortunately for us, you need to have a formidable state that starts from within to build from to the outside.
I have a
We
question.
don't need a formidable state. We
No, for
just,
us.
No,
For-
we just
for
need
the-
some Somali pirates.
I have the
Yeah,
question.
but
Like,
but if go ahead. Sorry, but I'll get back. But
No, I have the question. Maybe we're running out of time, right? Yeah. I have
We
a
have-
question
yeah.
for you and you. What do you think is going to happen to Syria?
My greatest hope is that, and I come at it from, interestingly enough, from 14 years of war and seeing how devastating it is, that you actually will be the first one to learn to accommodate one another. In other words, however devilish the political bargain might be, that there might be a formidable state being built in Syria. Now, that will take a generation. For now, what I want is at least those who have suffered hellish consequences now learn to actually live with one another within one border, maybe. But
Hopefully.
we've learned not to,
No expectations.
no expectations. Even that's the theme there. He is far more learned in this subject. so maybe-
Mahmoud?
No, I'm not Khalis. Who says? Who says?
I
No.
say.
It's based on the circumstances.
No,
Tell
no,
us.
no, no. Like, okay, so
The fantasy story.
Here is my problem. Okay, I like when everybody tells me that it's gonna get worse. I'm like, compared to what?
Compared to what it was.
How? Based on what we know now, based on what we have seen,
We were living
how
in hell.
At worst, will we have more like years of armed conflict? Already 13 years, didn't expect it to stop. Okay, will we have like oppression and people in jail and people being bombed and like stepped on, whatever? Like, sure, we had the ISIS. Like, do you need Islamists? ISIS was in power. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, Israel take over is like. What is the worst?
May I
that
say
could-
something here?
How much worse could it get?
I would call it worse because we don't know what. There is a term like the gradation is worse, whatever. That being said, I can't tell you what's worse. This is what we've seen
You
so
asked
far.
me my opinion.
You didn't.
And I'm
You didn't
telling
feel. You didn't
I
experience.
am
You
telling
saw.
you,
You
I
saw.
don't think,
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying? There is, like, whenever Egypt talks about, like, you know, hitting rock bottom, it talks about civil war or being like Syria or Iraq. Like, you know what I'm saying? That is the scary thing. That is the refugee experience. They've been through it. They've been through
Really?
whatever your nightmare was.
The
if
poster
you
child of
imagined
it is-
They went through it. So it's not optimism that the things are going to get better. It's just that there is no other options.
And it's
Like,
getting.
So it is what it is.
getting
What's
better.
left is what is. Yeah.
It is getting better. Let me just add to this point. We went through all the hellish things you mentioned and you mentioned,
Yeah.
and now we have at least some people who met their parents after 40, 50. Okay, and the other thing is, no matter what happens in the future, it would never be worse than what happened already. Civil war, it's been called civil war 14 years. People being killed, bombed, chemical weapons, what do you want?
ISIS.
Slaughtering.
ISIS.
You know, me to run to Europe, I had to cross mountains and water and seas and be pushed in the
And
water.
Turkish police,
Swimming back.
border
This is
people.
one example. I have a friend who went all over the world to reach Germany. So I believe I want to just go back, see my mom.
Good.
After 14 years.
Good.
Hug my sisters, see my nephews and nieces, the ones I've never met. And at least maybe be buried in my country in the end of my time. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I died, I hope, guys, put me in Syria. If I died on the way, bury me in Syria. Because 10 days ago, I was telling my girlfriend, I have an identity crisis. I don't know who am I. Am I Syrian or German now? But now I feel the identity I got back. I can go back, no matter what the situation. The monster left.
Okay.
And
There is a new monster bat, and by the time it decides that
Let's
we are
see
his
if he's
victims,
cute.
Yeah.
and there is a problem, that's an issue for like a bunch of years. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
That's how I see
Let's
it
have
for
a
that.
time to breathe at least.
Like, just chill with it. Like,
You have to learn this. طول
you
بالك.
know, because it's not gonna get worse. Because it did not get worse than what we have seen. It does not. Like people, like when people look at like the people coming out of the prisons, whatever. The thing that fucked with me the most was the children.
Yes.
Not the children that were like jailed. No, the children that were being born, that they
In
found
jail.
with the women, that were obviously the product of rape and years of rape that was happening inside the prison. that
Syria
those-
need a lot of fix.
Like,
You need a
like,
truth and
how
beauty.
do you take that kind of trauma and fix it? Truth and reconciliation, is it enough even? Like what kind
Only
of...
because we're religious and we live a high and mighty power will do the forgiving at the end if we forgive one
I
another.
know, but like when you take a look at the examples, right? Like Germany, denazification too fucking hard. They fucking like, you know, escaped it after a year and a half. They're like, no, if you push too much into this, the entire country is gonna fall apart.
Yeah.
South Africa, like, you know what I'm saying? They had truth and reconciliation, sure, but like, you know, it did not really address most
No, it
of that
didn't
stuff.
address
and
no.
whatever.
The current
We still have the same
electoral
problem.
movement is actually denying that there was such a thing because
Exactly.
the economy economic and social institutions in which the system was built never changed.
Right.
Poverty increased, not
And those are
decreased in
white
the
people.
countries.
Poverty is a
Those are
political
white people.
decision.
Those are the Dutch and the
Yeah.
Germans. And
Yeah.
Poverty
Syrians
is a political
make the
decision.
better, to succeed.
Yeah.
Where Germans and Dutch have failed.
Yeah.
As I said, poverty is a political decision.
Yeah.
This is a,
What I'm-
let,
yeah.
let me end this with this just to
Yeah,
make you
let me
satisfied
end.
because he's not satisfied yet.
Why is he not satisfied?
I know. I can read.
No, he's
Look,
tired.
if me and you are playing PlayStation, okay?
That's
Let's-
a mighty order.
Yeah,
Go
let's
on.
put it this way.
Okay.
Me and you are not gonna die. We're playing. We're using the joystick, and we're using immortal fighters to fight with, like Mahmoud Salam.
Yeah.
Okay, and these figures are not dying. Who's gonna be tired, them or me?
Good question.
I am the one who's controlling them.
Yes, yeah.
But I will be bored at the end. And this is exactly what's happening now. But to answer the question, how much energy do we have to fight? It's over. We won't. And I hope so.
You ran out and therefore it stopped.
Yeah, and the character is still alive there, but I
Yeah.
can't kill it.
Yeah. Also, the generation has been swiped off the map because of it.
And I don't want to get kids if there is no.
What
you
a
know?
merry bunch of conversation we're having in this last conversation of the year that I have planned.
Okay, right before Christmas, baby. That's our
Exactly.
Past the
It's an
Christmas,
Oriental Christmas.
Give you my heart.
Dark scared color of conversations. I'm eternally. Huh? 15 minutes? Shall we continue for 15 minutes?
We can continue for
We will
Do you
edit it
Do you
out.
have the energy?
I have questions.
You still have questions?
Yes.
Oh my
You
God.
still have 10 minutes.
Can
then.
we talk? Maybe this is, again, now I'm finding this to be incredibly futile, honestly. Because I wanted to talk about trade unions, because so much of my inspiration for this came from Tunisia. It is what it is now. But there was a time when there was a certain formidable force within Tunisia that affected change. That was not people.
Right.
That's why I quit believing in people, really. This manifest destiny shit, I don't believe in it.
Okay.
So, in my mind,
In my mind
Syria's
of mind.
future is like,
Go on.
Syria's future somehow is like tradesmen make unions and then make Syria livable. Because trade unions can
Syrians are
demand.
traders more than unions.
So trader unions,
Yeah,
then
no,
maybe.
exactly.
Yeah.
Presidents, business people.
We are in
And-
the middle of 3 continents, that's why.
See, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know what
You
I'm
have to
saying?
put it in mind also from
So
a
like
colonial
if people
point.
unite in the sense of how they do things, then they will pull others as well and would go somewhere. Because communist countries also had trade unions. None of them ever affected any change. And by that what I mean is certain professionals in a group can do something.
I know, but like it's really hard to build new institutions. Like this was the criticism that the previous supporters of Mubarak had, like the only one I found legitimate.
Yeah,
They're like, you want to bring down the state and claim you're going to rebuild it,
yeah.
but I can assure you, if you bring it down, no one will rebuild anything.
No one will, exactly.
Because of the difficulty of what principles to build it on?
Because we have no experience in building.
Someone else built.
Someone else did this. We came and took over structures and we made it work. Every single
Going back
one.
to the same discussion with Germany.
Every single.
No, but but the Egyptian case is different because the Mamluks is what I hear. It's been for a very long time. The Egyptian
You
never
guys
had
didn't
power.
build
Not
The
just
Jews
the
built.
Mamluks, the Egyptian military, like the modern Egyptian military under Muhammad Ali,
yeah.
which Muhammad Ali created after he killed the Mamluks, right? And he did it and he saw Egypt as just like this place in which he can have an army.
Yeah.
Every state has an army.
Sure.
Egypt from the beginning was an army that has a state.
So is Pakistan. for that
Okay.
matter, yeah.
Exactly.
Before Pakistan. Pakistan was not even a country. Muhammad Ali,
That's
we're talking
interesting.
1860.
By the way, it was Omanian Imperium back then.
Well, yes, it wasn't
It
even
was
like
Oman.
it was
Pakistan was belonging to
something.
Oman.
Yeah.
فاهم؟ But in Egypt, it was and Muhammad Ali and his sons used it to take over Hijaz, engage, help fight at the side of the Americans and the American-Mexican War, for example, who sent a regiment of Nubians there. If you go to Arizona, you'll find the Egyptian soldiers, the non-Egyptian soldier, being celebrated there in Phoenix. There is a statue for them, and they went and never came back. which is the funniest thing. Can you just imagine like 1,000 Nubians being taken from Nubia and sent to like Mexico, told to like fight the other brown people, and they just left. They just like.
I like it out here.
Let's stay here.
You know, whatever.
It's the
like,
same
exactly.
temperature, the same atmosphere.
So that's, you know what I'm saying? This is something that like, you know, that we had, and it just became like, Asr al-Aini is a very famous Egyptian hospital. It's supposed to be like the mother of all Egyptian hospitals. It was created for the military.
Not
Okay?
by them.
For the people.
Not by them.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's that.
Yeah.
So you have this entire history, this idea of like, you know, and it comes from Egypt being like, okay, cursed by its strategic position, right?
Yeah.
Like anybody, any motherfucker wants to call himself the great has to like take over Egypt.
Oh, yes.
You know, and this is why we never really had a chance or a breather, because nobody would leave us alone. Everybody passing by had to take a piece, you know?
Like if I want to consider what's happening in the Arab countries.
yeah.
So the need for a centralized military is something that exists in Egypt since the days of Ahmus.
Superseded.
Yeah, from days of Ahmus.
So it superseded state formation in Egypt and therefore suffocated it and killed it, and since then.
Not just that, the historical need of
manipulated
Egyptians for a strong military married itself with the imperialistic ambitions of Muhammad Ali, who did not really like Egypt as a country, but like he took it because it was going to help him to like increase his empire, personal empire, like married each other. You know
So
what I'm
Muhammad
saying?
Ali would be Ali Pasha from the Ottoman Emperor?
Yes,
Or okay.
Ali Pasha.
Ali Pasha. Yeah.
And when those two, like, you know, came together in the 1900s, but in the 20th century, like, that's when it became, like, you know, it got looked upon as, like, this, and it's the weirdest thing. It's a military created by invaders and occupiers that people believed would liberate them, you know, and trusted them.
And it's not just there, it's
The
everywhere.
reason, you see, but you know where I'm going with this. If it's that difficult to create a new state, that team is also a Syrian team, which is
Right.
the old order is dead.
Right.
But the new one yet to come, and since you've not had experience with Baathists and everybody else for 3-4 generations over you, you can't even remember back to an institutional memory where you can
They
create
know who
something.
built the Egyptian army? Who trained
The
them?
Americans last time I checked.
Confederate soldiers.
Yes, yeah.
American Confederates.
Because one of our great heroes, his whole story is written by an American Confederate officer. I was shocked to find that, to be honest. But
Yeah,
there you
but
have it.
that's the thing. So the people who lost the war are the people who taught our military how to form and fight, like the losing side of the, like, you know.
Okay.
You're not dealing with, like, you know, a stable kind of state and institution. You're dealing with an imperialist state that has always been an occupied country, an imperialized state.
Okay.
That even when you created the military, it got created
It's
in
a
order to
big
keep it
project.
in power.
Yeah.
It's a big
You know,
project.
keep it stable, because we have the Suez Canal now, and we need to get that stuff rolling, and we can't really have, you know what I'm saying? So, like,
Yeah. But Egypt also takes quite a huge, best way to say it is whatever happens in Egypt reverberates across the Arab world.
but that has been Sisi's blackmail card, right? Like to Europe and whatever, like, hey, if you think Syrians are a problem with 3 million,
Yeah.
imagine what will happen when 30 million Egyptians, like, you know, cross
Across the Mediterranean Sea and
you
come
know,
to you.
which would be the funniest thing ever, like all of the men holding hands and legs, and then the women and children running on top of their backs. It will be a great moment. And then they arrive back to Italy, and then they immediately have sex with everyone and impregnate
And
them.
then,
And then in 1 year, you
send
will have
it back
60 million. back.
60 million
Yeah,
back.
60 million back, and bring down the EU project completely. Like, this is what you're
It
dealing with.
feels like they
with
are
country
choosing
like
with
Egypt.
refugees they want to have next
You
year.
know, exactly. Like, no, we will just end the world. Like, that's my problem. Like, Syrians, like Libya, a bunch of Libyans almost like convinced Europe to like kick out like Italy and Spain. Syrians, like, as you have seen, brought the Nazis out in Germany. You know,
They are now
brought them out.
30%.
So what, I mean,
What do
guys,
you
this
think
is incredibly
Egyptians would
impressive.
do?
The losers come and have such a pivotal formation in these states that it's as if they'll never come out, and it will be by a miracle if a viable state comes out of these places,
Well,
which
maybe
is
there isn't
pluralistic.
supposed to, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. Maybe there isn't supposed to be a viable
Shit.
state.
What am I doing this for then, Karak? This is pointless.
No, I'm asking
all
you.
pointless.
I'm asking you, what
Yeah.
if that is not supposed to happen? What if you need... a
Well,
great-
okay. Can I give you a little bit of my understanding?
Go on.
The Ethiopian example that I actually left and then later learned about. And what I joked about in my teenagers was our TV was so boring, but it was talking about fertilizer for farmers. That was the locus of the show. The grown-up understand it as pro-poor policies.
Right.
The idea being that, yes, you have a population of back then 60, now 120. And the rebels who took over the communist government since 91 spent from 91 to 2000 a governing philosophy that they can use to mobilize the masses for a better development idea. Around 2000, they used the model from the Asian tigers and so, and they said the government should have an active role in actually poor policies. So farmers getting better seeds and fertilizers, not hospitals, but health posts being available because you can't afford a hospital, you're so broke. And then making sure that when a woman is pregnant, instead of getting to her at 9 months, following her with trainings of nurses who get not a doctorate level training, but 2-3 years to watch out for what is, and then make a referral system. It adds up in such a saying that the country's poverty rate, whenever it was, I don't know, but it's probably one of the few countries that did what Millennium Development Goals were, which is reducing poverty by half. So,
Did they?
yeah, by Millennium Development Goals were 2015, was it the end goal? It's not the whites that said that, it was the African Development Bank that did a thorough research and said this country reduced poverty by half, right? The Abiy philosophy of government for the future is, it's what they call this Protestant prosperity philosophy. If I do it right and if it looks cool, then you will be inspired and do something, which doesn't work for the poorest of the poorest because we have plenty of the poorest.
But here is the thing.
And that's the only...
50%.
No, but
No.
here is the thing. Do you recycle? Do you recycle?
Yes, I do.
Out of belief of recycling or just out of habit and integration?
German.
No, out of poverty.
Out, yes, for money. No, I get it. 100%.
Come here, give me a
اديله
dab.
يا ابني, don't leave him hanging.
I'm clapping. It's
No.
too true.
No, but it's true. Like, we do the recycling for the bottles. What I'm saying is this.
Yeah.
You're talking about, like, we need to build systems, we need to build this, we need to build that.
Yeah.
We are dealing with climate change. We are talking about the countries that are going to get affected by it. It's
Yeah.
going to be Mediterranean, North African, Ethiopia is coming, whatever.
Sure.
That is going to come with a whole, and there is no one talking about it. Like, for me, like, everybody talks about, oh, we need to, like, lower emissions or prevent whatever. And I am thinking we need to have post-crisis problem. Like, this is happening, we need to figure out what we're going to do.
It's gonna do next.
So if you, and I don't, like, I used to fight with my French flatmate because I am not very big on recycling, and I'm not very big on recycling because it feels like masturbation. And the reason why it feels like masturbation is because, oh my God, like, you're so self-conscious. How many, like, Germans, how many BASF, like, factories exist in the world that are polluting everything?
Yeah.
How many ones that are happening through your other, like, automotive or construction, or like, whatever. Like, if this idea that, like, you can go to the same thing that China is doing, same thing that everybody else is doing, coming to, like the South, and, like, having your factories and your markets and your shitty environmentalist, like, record there, while being high and mighty in your own country regarding it, and it reaches a point in which, like, there was this I was watching this panel, and they had this, I think, this girl from Nigeria, and they're trying to do this whole, like, climate initiative. We'll give you 100 billion,
Just
in
do it, like-
investment, but don't fossil fuels, and I don't know what, and they're like, listen, you can take your 100 billion and you can fuck off because I am standing on $15 trillion of oil. Okay, and I don't trust you when it comes to we want to save the planet, because when it comes down to it, you are going to end up with a whole lot of people who are
You
going to
always
be
say that.
immigrating,
That's
not
right.
for economic reason, not because Assad is killing them, but because literally the planet is going to get cooked.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're asking me how we're going to build it, I'm asking you, are we not living on the same planet?
Sure.
And should it not be, we should be building this, we should be looking at what areas will be affected, what areas won't be affected, and then start thinking that maybe that's what we need to focus on, and maybe take the pressure off the areas that will be affected from, like, are you going to build a prosperous future? Because the sun might be the reason why you won't.
Sure.
Okay?
That's fair. But
And it's getting hotter.
That's why I'm talking about it's being the
But this is
like-
the thing as well, because screw the technology, because I'm also, like, I went to school for this shit
Right.
a long time ago. Barely, let's just put it
Right.
that way. What inspired me was you literally fight climate change, but if only and only if it makes sure that the poorest among society get to thrive in it.
Sure.
In other words, build them a euro or give them 10 cents to put a seedling and then give them a euro until the tree becomes viable. Make that the next circular economy.
Sure.
Then these people will have a place to go to when they need the resources. They are paid so that they could sustainably maintain it. It sinks carbon. And remember, this shit is generational, not a 10-year plan, which every politician when he gets out of. That's why the political conversation about climate change is silly, is because no one is talking generational level changes that we need
Oh,
to do.
not even current one. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm supposed to go to Reva and pay extra to have a plastic bag, while every single part of every packaging and anything else in Reva is made of plastic, and somehow the
Just the
plastic
buttons.
bag that
Just
I'm
the
gonna
buttons
get-
are the problem.
Yeah, exactly. But like the bag I'm gonna get that has to be more expensive because then we are plastic. You should have got like a paper one because that is how you save the.
Recyclable.
Well, I have good news for you. gentlemen.
Environment.
Well, okay, maybe silver lining. We've discovered how to completely recycle the polyvinyl chlorides, which is the plastic that we're using. It's baby
It's
steps. but we're finally
4%
getting
of
there.
all plastics.
No, no,
all,
but the real plastic we're throwing, now we're
Okay.
finding ways to completely recycle it.
Let's hope so.
And that's now being tested, alpha, beta, gamma tested. If that happens, but it will not happen, I guess, because corporate interests are very
No, and it will take a lot of
My
like
goodness me.
logistics and I don't know what.
Every time we go through the positive thing, the negative piles up. But
No, but that's what I'm saying. Maybe we need to stop trying to find a
A
positive.
solution.
Maybe you need to accept,
Start the solution.
like you need to have optimistic fatalism.
Start the
It's all going
solution.
badly.
I'm wallowing between the two, and I don't like me.
No,
so
no,
yeah,
no.
why
But
I'm looking
optimistic
for something.
fatalism is like, hey, listen.
It
the
can't get any worse. Is
No, no,
optimistic.
the meteor is coming. So let's find a nice hill, have a picnic, and pick your best wine and your best meats, because we're not going to enjoy it another day.
Could we be sent to them to
So
any
you can
planet?
watch, like, they have a good view. They have, like,
Let's go
Okay,
to moon.
I haven't reached that level of darkness, but it's coming soon. But
Oh, yeah, like
to
you
be
need to be
informed.
Arab for it, like I think.
I,
So.
I think
I believe
you're right, but,
you can't be darker.
Look at this big face, like, we just need to be Arab.
exactly. Well, I will essentially just change.
Come
my
to our show. Let me roast you more.
Yes, I will definitely do that.
Oh my God.
I thank you both for this. I know it's 2 hours of conversations that may amount
And
to
my
nothing,
German boss will kick
but
me.
we said them. And this has been We Want a Word, organized by the great Karam Kap and Rana Vadikari. Me as a host of it, with my friend Ahmed Al-Kulri and the newly discovered gentleman that I have not met in 10 years, Ahmed Salim. Sorry, Ahmed
محمود
Salim.
سالم لو سمحت.
سالم.
محمود سالم.
I thank you both. I don't think this will be the. There you go. It will not be the last time we will sit down and
it
chop it
might
up.
be.
But
Why?
let's talk next time about
I'm
how we
going to the
rebuild
States and I
Syria.
don't want to come back.
Really?
No, حبيبي.
Yeah, we'll talk about this later.
Okay.
Not on air.
But if you're not, then we'll find ways.
We will do Skype.
We pay you enough to come back and talk to
You
us.
will
How about
pay.
that?
Nice.
One can only be so optimistic.
That's very promising.
This will be a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.